Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Start by binding the Super Seminary clock. Chapter 81. Ebony Maw and the two Shinhee mechas have distanced themselves from each other. The Black Dwarf, who was knocked away by the Shinhee mechas, also got up from the ground again. This Black Dwarf has been hit twice, but it is worthy of being the only tank among the 5 obsidian stars. It has nothing else but can withstand beatings. After being chopped twice, it was not seriously injured. However, this situation cannot last long. The combat power of the Shinhee mecha has exceeded their imagination. It is as big as the Black Dwarf, and its strength is also great, but its attack speed is faster. The most important thing is that these Shinhee mechas are immune to Ebony Maw's magic attacks. It is obviously metal, but it cannot be directly controlled. This is beyond his understanding. Summon the spaceship and let them put down the vanguard, Ebony Maw said, and then a spaceship like a donut appeared in the sky above the altar at a very fast speed. Then, a large number of drop warehouses were dropped, and some of them even came directly to the altar. Activate the light barrier and protect the altar. Send a message to King Shi, request reinforcements. While the two Shinhee mechas were talking, they had already performed their respective operations. An invisible light barrier appeared above the altar, and a delivery device that was directly smashed into the altar was directly blown into powder. As a result, the delivery devices dropped later could only be placed outside the altar. At the same time, in Li Qingyan's manor on Earth, King Shi had received a signal from the two Shinhee mechas calling for reinforcements. Then, a pioneer flagship of the Teodi Corps appeared above the manor. This flagship was built by King Shi with other Shinhee mecha warriors. Because they were once from the Teodi Corps, they were naturally best at building spaceships for their Teodi Corps. So they built such a flagship as a means of transportation for them to travel through the universe. The 200 Shinhee mechas on standby on Earth, except for the 8 mechas that needed to stay in the manor, the Dark Star and the Dark Elf mothership, all entered the flagship. The space wormhole opened, and the flagship entered it directly. They flew to the planet where the distress signal came from at the fastest speed. At the same time, on another primitive planet in the distant universe, Li Qingyan also knew everything that was happening there at the moment. Ebony Maw, Black Dwarf, plus a vanguard corps of more than 30,000 people. Just to test what is hidden in the altar, Thanos actually sent such a team, really spared no expense. Li Qingyan sighed. He had long known that the altars he built could not always be safe and sound. Perhaps it was some natives on the planet who had the intention of rebellion, or other forces from the universe. After all, someone would attack these altars. Therefore, he specially arranged Shinhee mechas to guard them, and the interior of the altar was equipped with some special protection systems. For example, the light energy barrier and the emergency space transmission device. The purpose is to temporarily open a protection to prevent the altar from being destroyed when the altar is invaded and the two Shinhee mechas cannot directly resist it. Then quickly transfer the Shinhee mecha troops left on the Earth through the transmission device to participate in the battle together. Led by the King of Shihu himself, the army consists of 200 Shinhee mechas. Such a force is already a very powerful force even in the Super God universe. After all, the entire Teodi Corps, all their mecha warriors, the number does not exceed 1,000. And these 1,000 Teodi mechas command nearly 1 million soldiers of the Teodi Corps, and are the core force of the Teodi Corps. Do you need to go for support? The Valkyrie on the side came forward. There are several women around Li Qingyan now, but only the Valkyrie is his subordinate. The other women were all so-called nobles of this planet, who were personally sent here to serve Li Qingyan. Of course, Li Qingyan originally refused. But it was hard to refuse their kindness, so Li Qingyan had to accept it reluctantly. At this moment, he was lying on the dragon couch, with 3 young and beautiful women behind him. One was cleaning his ears, one was massaging his shoulders and back, and the other was massaging his thighs. The 2 young girls in front gently picked the most precious and sweetest fruit in the local area, peeled it, and brought it to Li Qingyan's mouth. No need. Li Qingyan shook his head, half-closed his eyes, and enjoyed it very much. Ah, the Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyan, who was like a real emperor at this moment, and looked at the large group of beauties lingering around him, and the veins on her temples bulged. You don't want to go because you can't bear to give up this wonderful enjoyment. The Valkyrie had followed Li Qingyan through several planets. When he was on those planets before, Li Qingyun's performance was still normal. But since arriving on this planet, he has completely shown a completely different side from before. Although he has solved the troubles on this planet and reversed the endless filth and corruption on this planet, but Li Qingyun has also started to indulge in pleasure like the original nobles on this planet. Every day, he is surrounded by beautiful women and drinks. As Li Qingyun's subordinate, it's hard for Valkyrie to say anything. Moreover, these beauties are all voluntary. Li Qingyun has not forced them, so the Valkyrie can reluctantly accept it. In addition, these selected women are really beautiful. Her figure, appearance, and even personality are impeccable. If she were a man, she would probably also fall. However, this is just about enjoying things on weekdays. Now that the altars he made on other planets have been attacked, and Li Qingyun is still enjoying himself here, isn't it appropriate? This is already a bit like a feeling of being too happy to think about Shu and being dejected by playing with things. Plaything is not quite the right word, but that's pretty much it. Don't worry, I'm not the person you imagined, Li Qingyun said, but his subsequent movement toward the girl in front of her made the Valkyrie tremble all over. That's it, you still say you're not. I go first. No intention of staying any longer. Valkyrie turned around and walked out of the room, closing the door when she left. The next scene is not suitable for children. Big clock, monitor the situation there at all times. By the way, where is Thanos' sanctuary number 2? Li Qingyun was still enjoying it, but in the dark matter plane, he was always paying attention to the situation ahead. Already searching, came the answer from the great clock. As early as the moment when Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf attacked the altar, the big clock had been monitoring the specific situation there. Inside the wormhole, the Teoti Pioneer flagship flew out. Nearly 200 Kamigawa mechas held long swords and flew out of the flagship. On the flagship, a huge golden laser swept directly towards the large number of vanguard guards that were charging in the distance. The most powerful attack weapon of the Teoti Pioneer flagship, although it is not the kind of fierce tide that can directly blow a large city into ashes, it can still cause huge damage. This one swept past, and the thousands of vanguard guards rushing at the front were directly blown into ashes. Even that area was now a scorched earth. The Lord of Kamigawa has an order that in the planet he protects, the use of powerful attack weapons is not allowed, and the local environment must not be excessively damaged. This attack ends here. It cannot be used again unless it is absolutely necessary. The Valkyrie's voice came through the big clock. The Beast-Eating King and the other Kamigawa mechas immediately stopped their attacks after hearing this order. After that, Teoti's Vanguard flagship no longer used any powerful attack weapons. Why doesn't Lord Kamigawa let us use those weapons? If we use it, we can take care of these little minions in front of us directly. Several Kamigawa mechas were talking inexplicably. This is how their Teoti Legion used to do things. As long as they can clean up the opponent's troops, they can use any weapon. As long as it doesn't blow up the entire planet. We are Kamigawa mecha now, not the Teoti Legion before. Please remember your identities first. The Beast-Eating King said in a serious tone. We know this. The Kamigawa mechas answered in unison. They are Kamigawa mecha now, and their god is the Lord of Kamigawa, and they all know this. This was said when the big clock re-engraved them into the current mecha. It is an absolutely irresistible command that exists in their memory. This planet is the territory of the Lord of Kamigawa. The Beast-Eating King answered. Understood. The Kamigawa mechas no longer have any doubts. This place belongs to the Lord of Kamigawa, and this is his own thing. Since it is their own thing, they naturally do not want it to be destroyed, so they are not allowed to use powerful attack weapons and not excessively damage the planet. The Master also said that we can use it if we have to. He didn't completely restrict us. Let the Vanguard flagship be prepared. If the war gets into trouble, we can just use it. Shizuo said, and the other Kamigawa mechas around him stopped commenting on this. It's just that you don't use powerful weapons. To deal with more than 20,000 Vanguard guards, it doesn't take much effort to rely on the swords in their hands. Army attack. With an order from Shizuo, nearly 200 Kamigawa mechas waved their swords and flew towards the massive pioneer guards on the ground. Without using the firepower on the spaceship, there are less than 200 robots who dared to fight against our more than 20,000 Vanguard guards. Are they really confident that they can win, or are they just brainless? Ebony Throat raised his head, looked at the Kamigawa mechas above and murmured in his heart. They have followed Thanos for a long time and have led the Vanguard to invade other planets countless times. On those planets, even if they have more troops than they do, they will all be torn apart by the Vanguard's brutality. Having seen the attack from the Pioneer flagship earlier, he thought that the other party would keep attacking with such absolutely powerful firepower. Unexpectedly, they only fought once and then stopped. He gave up strong attack methods and instead chose to use robots to fight the Vanguard guards. This was something Ebony Maw couldn't understand. The other party is distracted. The two Kamigawa mechas immediately waved their swords and charged towards Ebony Maw again. Although Ebony Maw was distracted from paying attention to the battlefield in the distance, he still paid attention here. Now seeing two review mechas rushing towards him, he made a casual move with his right hand, and a huge boulder immediately appeared in front of him. As a magician, if you can't control the Kamigawa mecha itself, then you can control the surrounding objects and attack the Kamigawa mecha. Snort. A cold snort suddenly came from midair. Immediately afterwards, a square frame composed of golden energy suddenly fell from the sky and directly covered Ebony Throat's body. The boulder he originally controlled immediately lost its function at this moment and fell to the ground. Black Dwarf watched this scene unfold and hurriedly waved his battle axe in an attempt to rush to the rescue. But this time, before he could take action, the two Kamigawa mechas immediately turned around and rushed towards him. One on the left and one on the right, two Kamigawa mechas as tall as the Black Dwarf were waving their swords and slashing at him. Black Dwarf's strength and defense are very strong, but at most he is comparable to a Kamigawa mecha. Now faced with two Kamigawa mechas attacking him, without the support of Ebony Maw, he immediately fell into trouble. He could only keep swinging the giant axe and resist with difficulty, while still retreating quickly. Not to mention saving Ebony Maw, he couldn't even save himself. Ebony Throat, the one who had just thrown down the golden energy shield, was naturally the leader of the Kamigawa mecha, the Eater King of the once gluttonous civilization. He also has a void engine in his body, and it is a void engine with a much higher energy level and function than the two Shinhi mechas that guarded the altar before. This King Shi had killed Angel Moi, a third-generation angel warrior, Angel Yan's right-wing guard. What is this? Ebony Maw was trapped in the energy shield, and his calm face now showed a panic expression. Because his magic ability was completely ineffective this time. Not only could it not work on the Shinhi mecha, but it also had no effect on other objects around him. Moreover, he felt a very strong suppression, which made him feel weak, as if he had lost all his strength at once. Construct the concept of Void Strike, prepare for execution, death penalty. She raised his right hand, and a purple ball of light condensed in his hand. This ball of light was condensed by void energy, and it was actually the energy form in the golden energy shield at this moment. He squeezed it hard, and the purple ball of light shattered instantly. At the same time, all the energy in the golden energy shield immediately poured into Ebony Maw's body. This powerful magician, who once even crushed Doctor Strange in the movie, exploded directly in the golden energy ball. It's still a comfortable feeling. The Devourer King, he enjoyed the feeling of killing. This Devourer is quite capable. Li Qingyan was standing alone on the roof of the palace at this time, looking up at the starry sky. The Devourer equipped with the void engine developed by the god of death Karl may not be as powerful as the third-generation super soldiers, but relying on the suppression of the void ability, even some third-generation super soldiers are not its opponents. The big clock answered. Does it mean that even I can't beat him? Li Qingyan narrowed his eyes slightly. You have the latest version of the void engine installed in your body. Although it can't reach the level of Y's black hole engine, it is still easy to suppress the Devourer. Even if there is no void engine, the real void technology is all in the database of the big clock. As the controller of the big clock, you can dissolve all the void attack methods he uses at will. Without the assistance of the void engine, the actual combat power of the Devourer is comparable to that of the second-generation super soldiers, and it is no threat to you. The big clock answered. Besides, even if you don't use the void technology in the big clock, he can't threaten you. The big clock is very clear that in Li Qingyan's hands, there are still 4 infinite gems. Among these 4 infinite gems, the power of the reality gem is similar to the void. Even without the infinite gems, the Thor factor and the celestial group factor fused in Li Qingyan's body have already made him out of the category of ordinary super soldiers. That's it. Li Qingyan is not modest. He is a super soldier who is different from ordinary super soldiers. Relying on the world of infinite resources such as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Li Qingyan's development path is much broader than that of the Super God Universe. The super soldiers of the Super God Universe obtain supernatural powers by extracting things and materials that exist in nature. When using these superpowers, they are also based on the traditional energy of the Super God Universe. That is, the so-called light energy, dark energy, bioenergy and the like. But Li Qingyan is different. His supernatural factors come from something unique in the Marvel Universe. Thor's power comes from blood. The power of the celestial group comes from the life energy absorbed over a long period of time. Moreover, both powers can be regarded as divine powers. It is the kind of power that even ordinary people can use through some medium. For example, Jane Foster picked up Thor's hammer, and Star-Lord has the genes of the Celestials. As for the void engine possessed by the Devourer, his ability can suppress the magic of Ebony Maw, or because the Great Clock provided him with some information and data about magic in advance. Therefore, it is impossible to further suppress Li Qingyan, who has the power of Thor and the power of the Celestials. Have you found the specific location of Sanctuary 2 where Thanos is? Li Qingyan asked. As long as Thanos exists for one day, he is a threat to Li Qingyan. Now he has the power to destroy Thanos, so if he can find him, it is best to kill him directly. Through the spaceship that Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf came on, the interstellar coordinates of Sanctuary 2 and Thanos have been found. But the other party cut off the communication with Sanctuary 2, so I can't actually determine whether Sanctuary 2 is there through communication. The Great Clock answered. The reason why Shi and his men drove the Cross flagship to that place but did not give priority to attacking the spaceship that Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf were riding was to allow the Big Clock to read its data and find out the whereabouts of Thanos. If this spaceship still maintains the communication signal with Thanos, the Big Clock can follow the signal and directly lock Thanos' specific location. Unfortunately, this spaceship did not maintain the communication link with Sanctuary 2. Open the wormhole, I'll go over and take a look first. Although it has not been confirmed yet, since it is possible, let's go over and take a look first. The wormhole was opened directly, and Li Qingyan walked over directly. On the other side of the wormhole, there was a chaotic asteroid belt. Looking around, Li Qingyan did not see Sanctuary 2, but saw the mothership of the Chidori Legion that was about to leave. In the movie, in Avengers 1, Iron Man carried a nuclear bomb and flew into the universe, and it was directly blown up by the mothership of the Chidori Legion. With his eyes locked on the mothership of the Chidori Legion, he saw what happened before. That was the scene of Thanos' Sanctuary 2 crossing the space wormhole and flying to other coordinates in the universe. The mothership of the Chidori Legion was originally going to be transferred, but because its flying speed was much slower than Sanctuary 2, it stayed here temporarily. Quick, stop that human. An order came directly from the mothership. A large number of Chidori soldiers and Leviathans that were originally scattered in space immediately turned around. The soldiers raised their weapons and shot out lasers. The Leviathans swooped down directly, opened their huge mouths, and bit towards Li Qingyan. I didn't intend to move you, but you came to attack me first. Li Qingyan originally just wanted to find the whereabouts of Thanos through the communication signal in the Chidori mothership. Now, these soldiers took the initiative to attack. The Sword of Heavenly Killing was summoned, and Li Qingyan swung it directly, shooting out sword energy one after another. Li Qingyan's attack was powerful. No Chidori soldier or Leviathan could withstand Li Qingyan's attack. But the number of the opponents was too large, and they rushed forward at all costs. Their goal was clear, that is, to attack Li Qingyan with all their strength. Even if they could not kill him, they had to stop him from doing anything else. Thanos must have known, I am investigating his location. Li Qingyan understood the significance of the Chidori Corp's actions. The technology of the Big Clock is absolutely leading. But Thanos is also a very smart person. There was no news from the Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf he sent, and the supergiant had reminded him a long time ago that Li Qingyan had a strong information penetration technology. So, in order to prevent any eventuality, he urgently moved the base. But he did not expect that Li Qingyan had arrived before the Chidori Corps had time to move. It is obvious that Li Qingyan will immediately use the Chidori Corps to lock Thanos' position again. Therefore, Thanos, who was still in contact with the Chidori army, directly ordered the Chidori army to stop Li Qingyan at all costs. The location of Sanctuary 2 has been locked, but the other party is making a second space jump, and I can't track its specific location after the first crossing. The Big Clock reported. The attack of the Chidori army made Li Qingyan's action of opening the wormhole slow down. Thanos has already made another space jump. Since Thanos has escaped, the Chidori army will stay here forever. Li Qingyan's eyes turned to the huge Chidori mothership in front. Li Qingyan originally wanted to get rid of Thanos once and for all. But now, Thanos has run away, and the Chidori are trying their best to stop him. The original target of attack has been lost, so these in front of him are naturally his target of attack. Thunder. As soon as the word was spoken, countless electric currents immediately lingered on Li Qingyan's body. This is space, there are no clouds, no lightning energy. But through the transformation of surrounding stars and dark energy, Li Qingyan can still summon infinite thunder energy. Moreover, his is divine power, which comes from the body, not completely relying on external forces. So, at this moment, the lightning energy summoned by Li Qingyan is more powerful than he has ever used so far. The Tianxia sword pointed forward, and countless lightnings burst out from the long sword in an instant. It is like a big tree, with the Tianxia sword as the main trunk, and then extending countless twigs. Each of the scattered tributaries will accurately hit a Leviathan or a spaceship driven by a Chidori. The densely packed Chidori and Leviathans around them began to fall continuously like flies hit by dichlorvis. Towards the surrounding asteroid belts, toward the asteroids farther away, or even directly exploded on the spot, turning into dust in the universe. The originally mighty Chidori army, after being attacked by thunder and lightning, was reduced to a few scattered ones. The Chidori mothership in the distance was constantly retreating at this moment. More Leviathans and Chidori flew out of the mothership. They still flew towards Li Qingyan fearlessly. But the mothership was getting farther and farther away. The high-ranking officials of the Chidori army who were commanding in the mothership were afraid in their hearts. Only those completely brainless Leviathans and the mass-produced Chidori soldiers are truly fearless. The power of the gods. The Tianxia sword was raised, and the original thunder dissipated at this moment, replaced by an extremely powerful divine power, which was condensed on the Tianxia sword. Start the void engine, load the powerful power of the gods. The void engine on the Tianxia sword began to rotate at high speed at this time. On the periphery of the Tianxia sword, an ethereal sword shadow was constantly appearing. This sword shadow was constantly expanding, it became bigger and bigger, and longer. Finally, it gradually turned into a huge sword shadow that was thousands of meters long and hundreds of meters wide. And on the sword shadow, it was filled with powerful gods and void power. Cut. Another word fell, and Li Qingyan suddenly slashed the Tianxia sword in his hand towards the Chidori mothership. The huge ethereal sword shadow also chopped down quickly with his sword-swinging action. The sword shadow passed through the center of the Chidori mothership, and the originally huge mothership was neatly cut apart at this moment. The mothership was cut in half. The explosion that followed began to spread from the cut to the four forked parts of the mothership, and the entire mothership was finally completely shattered in the explosion. It turned into fireballs, and was pulled and collided with the weak attraction generated by the asteroids in the asteroid belt. In the end, it completely merged with the asteroid belt. As for the Chidori and Leviathan that flew out of the mothership and originally intended to rush towards Li Qingyan, they lost the ability to move directly because they lost control of the mothership. These Chidori and Leviathan have only lost the ability to move, and their body functions and lives have not completely ended. As long as a new communication system is connected, they will wake up immediately. The Big Clock reminded, "Do you need me to analyze the communication system and then change its code?" According to Li Qingyan's previous habit, he would always collect the spoils after the battle. This is the case with the Dark Elf's mothership and Ronan's Dark Star. Now these Leviathans and Chidori can obviously be used. No, just destroy their codes and let them die forever. Li Qingyan has no interest in these Chidori and Leviathans. The Dark Elf's mothership and Ronan's Dark Star were collected before to obtain more useful things. For example, the dark elf technology in the mothership, the black hole bomb and the stealth technology of large spacecraft are good gains. Although Ronan's Dark Star does not have such useful technology, its database contains a lot of information related to the Kree Empire. There are also information about the Nova Corps and Xandar. For Li Qingyan, who is in the stage of exploring the universe, these information are also very useful. As for these Chitauri and Leviathans at the moment, Li Qingyan has Shinhe mechas under his command, which is enough. If more manpower is needed in the future, he can also select the most suitable people from the planets he has conquered for simple training and upgrades, and let them take on the role. There is no need to collect these Chitauri and Leviathan monsters in front of him. Understood. The big clock agreed, and at the same time, a command was directly transmitted to the nerve centers of the Leviathans and Chitauri in front of them, which had stopped moving but were not completely dead. This command only prevented them from being resurrected in a short period of time. And these creatures in outer space will naturally die once they lose their ability to move for a long time. Their brains will also lose their original functions directly if they are not activated for a long time. Can we find any clues about Thanos? Li Qingyan asked. He has completely lost his whereabouts. The big clock replied. Contact Heimdall and ask him to investigate according to the direction we originally learned to see if there are any clues. Since he had already taken action, Li Qingyan planned to solve this trouble at once. However, the result was not what he wanted. Heimdall used his true vision to patrol once, but did not see any clues related to Thanos. Thanos and his sanctuary too have completely hidden in the universe. I am afraid that they will not show up easily in the future. Because Thanos knew very well that Li Qingyan had already set his sights on him. If Thanos dared to expose his whereabouts as before, then Li Qingyan would probably arrive soon. With Li Qingyan's current strength, Thanos simply could not compete with him. One thunder attack killed thousands of Chitauri and Leviathan monsters. One sword split the Chitauri mothership in half. He could even cross the distant universe with just a thought and appear directly in front of the enemy. Li Qingyan's ability has reached an unimaginable level of terror. This is another time that Li Qingyan has shown his power after the Land of Nothingness, and this time, the power he showed is enough to scare people. Li Qingyan's move this time can be said to have completely established his reputation as the Lord of Shinhe. Thanos, he and his army are notorious in the universe. For many years, all the powerful interstellar empires in the universe have kept their distance from him. Those weak planets and civilizations are terrified. Because Thanos will find a planet from time to time and then directly slaughter half of the people on the planet. So far, it is difficult to count the planets slaughtered by Thanos. But this time, the powerful Thanos was scared away by one person. The Chitauri army under his command was all killed to stop this person. 2 of his 4 strongest generals died at the hands of the robots made by this person. The army of more than 30,000 vanguards was completely wiped out by the opponent with 200 mechas. Who is this person? This person is naturally the Lord of Shinhe who ruled the Land of Nothingness. The Lord of Shinhe became famous, and the status of his subordinates naturally rose with it. In the universe, the people who know that Li Qingyan is under the command of the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are responsible for the Void on behalf of Li Qingyan. Guardians of the Galaxy. It's him. Experiment No. 13. In the huge spaceship of the Anti-Earth, the Supreme Evolutionary looked at the latest news sent back from the universe, and he saw the picture of the subordinate of Li Qingyan who was so powerful. At first, he didn't care much. But when he saw that Rocket Raccoon was among the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, he immediately became excited. The Supreme Evolutionary, he has been looking for Rocket Raccoon for a long time. He has been looking for Rocket Raccoon in the universe for many years, but after Rocket Raccoon escaped from here, he disappeared like a mud dragon into the sea. Even if there is some news occasionally, he will soon move to other places. In this vast universe, it is as difficult to find an erratic person as to find a needle in a haystack. Send a message to Sovereign and ask them to send a fleet to the Void immediately to bring back number 13. The Supreme Evolutionary gave the order directly. This guy who had a fake human skin glued to his face and looked extremely weird, looked even uglier when he went crazy. Boss, isn't this a bit too risky? One of the Supreme Evolutionary's right-hand men, Hula, who tried to turn against him and seize control of the spacecraft in the movie, stood up to remind him. Experimental subject number 13 is now Li Qingyan's subordinate. Hula's words made everyone else present sluggish. Li Qingyan, this is the ruthless man who just scared Thanos away and wiped out the Chitauri army. Maybe the Supreme Evolutionary didn't really understand the description of Li Qingyan in the intelligence just now. But they saw it very clearly. Li Qingyan is definitely not someone they can afford to provoke. I said, let the sovereigns attack immediately and bring back the number 13 experiment. The Supreme Evolutionary ignored Hula's reminder. He is the founder of Og Company, the person with the most invention patents in the universe, and has directly transformed many races, turning them from primitive and backward forms into today's intelligent life. Sovereign Star was created by him. In the eyes of the Supreme Evolutionary, Li Qingyan only occupied a few planets, while he, the Supreme Evolutionary, directly created the anti-Earth. How can Li Qingyan be compared with him? Yes, there is no way. Hula is just an assistant to the Supreme Evolutionary, and she has no right to refuse the order issued by the Supreme Evolutionary. Soon, an order issued from the headquarters of Og Company was transmitted to Sovereign Star. Those guys on Sovereign Star who thought they were of the noblest bloodline in the universe were all dumbfounded by this order. The High Priest Aisha's face was ashen, and the high-ranking members of the parliament were all silent. They all knew that the order of the Supreme Evolution could not be disobeyed. But at the same time, they did not want to take the initiative to provoke Li Qingyan. The other party was in the limelight and possessed unimaginable power. If Sovlan took the initiative to attack the void ruled by Li Qingyan at this time, and even wanted to capture Rocket Raccoon under his command, this would definitely offend Li Qingyan to death. We have no choice. This is an order issued by the founder of Og Company himself. We can't disobey it. Aisha shook her head helplessly. She didn't want to offend a strong man for no reason, but if they didn't take any action, it would be equivalent to betraying the Supreme Evolution and Og Company. When facing the sanctions of Og Company, they would also be unable to resist. In this case, between an enemy who only knew the reputation but not the specific strength, and a powerful creator who created them, he could only choose to offend the former. Have the drone combat group ready immediately. The combat troops will take off in 30 minutes and head to the void. Aisha gave the order, and the elders of the parliament were all silent at this moment. They were cunning and would only protect the interests of the entire planet at the most critical moment. Aisha could command the drone combat group at will, but the defense corps controlled by the parliament would never get involved. They would even prepare in advance, and if the Ogre Company really pushed them too far, they would rise up to resist. All these premises can only be done on the basis that the civilization of Silvira can continue to survive. Half an hour later, thousands of remote-controlled unmanned combat spacecraft flew out from the planet Sovereign. They flew directly to the jump point of the space wormhole and headed towards the direction of the void. In the void, the people of the Guardians of the Galaxy did not realize that they had been targeted by the Supreme Evolution, let alone that Sovereign's interstellar fleet was flying towards them. Li Qingyan defeated the Chitauri army alone, and scared Thanos to flee in embarrassment. These news made the void enter a carnival stage at this moment. They were originally prisoners of war forcibly ruled by Li Qingyan, but now they have transformed into the Lord of Shenhe, who is famous in the universe. The current status of the void in the universe is extremely high. In the past period of time, the number of cosmic businessmen and tourists coming and going here has been increasing. The natives of the void land all took advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune. They lived a comfortable life. However, this comfortable life was destroyed by the sudden arrival of the Sovereign Interstellar Fleet. These unmanned spacecraft broke in and controlled all the people living here the moment they arrived. Hand over Rocket Raccoon and we'll leave immediately. Aisha's words came out through the loudspeaker on the drone. Although she had to come here to look for Rocket Raccoon, she still didn't want to create too much hatred between Li Qingyan. Therefore, she would be happy if she could take Rocket Raccoon away without causing conflict with the Void Land. Why did you take Rocket away? He has no grudge against you sovereigns. Gamora was the first to stand up. At the beginning, they were just a makeshift team, but now, they have truly become a team. Yes, Rocket is our friend. He is also a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy and a subordinate of Lord Kamigawa. You want to take him away for no reason. This is absolutely impossible. Star-Lord directly sides with Rocket Raccoon. Groot the Treeman and Drax the Destroyer had also stepped forward at this time. Although most of the other people in the Land of Nothingness are hiding in the house, there are still a few who are paying attention to this place. They have also been getting along with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a while, and have gradually recognized this group of people. Now that they see them in trouble, they naturally want to help. I came here on assignment from Og Company. This incident is only related to Rocket Raccoon. It's best for others not to get involved, Aisha said. Hearing the name Og Company, Rocket's face immediately turned ugly. He already understood what this was all about. The guy who made him what he is now came to find him. Why do you sovereigns still listen to Og Company? You are not employees of their company. Star-Lord knows about Og Corporation. After all, it is the largest interstellar company in the universe. But Sovereign is a well-known planet in the universe, and Sovereign people are famous for their arrogance in the universe. How come they suddenly become thugs of Og Company? Because the entire Sovereign has evolved from the primitive human race to the present level with the help of the Supreme Evolution. Li Qingyun's voice suddenly came from behind Star-Lord. The Land of Nothingness was invaded, how could Li Qingyun not know about it? Aisha did not take action directly and gave Li Qingyun enough time to rush over. Lord of Kamigawa. At this moment, everyone turned around in unison and looked at Li Qingyun, who appeared out of thin air behind Rocket Raccoon. Lord of Kamigawa. Aisha's expression changed obviously. Because she was afraid of offending Li Qingyun too much, she didn't dare to take action directly as soon as she came. But I didn't expect that Li Qingyun would come so fast. Go back. From now on, there will be no relationship between you and the Supreme Evolution. Li Qingyun had no intention of taking direct action against these unmanned spacecraft on Sovereign. If we just go back, he won't let us go. Aisha also wanted to go back, but now, she had no choice. In that case, let's keep all these machines, Li Qingyun said, and at the same time, a flash of thunder flashed in his eyes. The huge dark communication signal instantly cut off the connection between all unmanned spacecraft and Sovereign Star. At this moment, all operating systems were completely controlled by Li Qingyun. In the face of the communication control of the big clock, all information systems are garbage. These thousands of unmanned spacecraft are completely controlled through communication. If the big clock directly cuts off their communication, they can easily seize control. However, Li Qingyun's hand was simply invincible to everyone in the void at this moment. Is this cheating again? Star-Lord sighed. Li Qingyun, in their eyes, he is just a loser. Thousands of unmanned spacecraft that threatened our entire Land of Nothingness, he just flashed thunder and lightning in his eyes and solved them. Gamora felt a huge sense of powerlessness. Compared with Li Qingyun, these people are really like little ants facing a strong human being. Even if they try their best, they may not be able to bite Li Qingyun. And Li Qingyun could crush them to death with just a move of his fingers. It's easy to drive away Sovereign's people, but I'm afraid the Supreme Evolution won't let it go. Rocket Raccoon turned around and looked at Li Qingyun, who was standing behind him. Supreme Evolution, do you want me to take you to find him for revenge? Li Qingyun is bored now. The previous pursuit of Thanos was unsuccessful. Although the Chitauri Legion was easily destroyed, it was not enough for Li Qingyun. Now that the Supreme Evolution is looking for trouble for itself regardless of life and death, let's go find him to practice. By the way, I will also try to see how the mental control ability provided by my latest fusion of the Super Star's energy factor is. Are you going to find the Supreme Evolution? Rocket Raccoon hesitated. He still has a lot of life planets under his command. I happen to be short of life planets, so I can just buy his Og Company directly. Li Qingyun said it very casually, but Rocket Raccoon felt very perverted after hearing it. Abnormally strong. An interstellar company that is unique in the universe, in Li Qingyun's eyes, is it really just something that can be acquired at will? You have to take me with you this time. The Valkyrie came out of the wormhole. The last time Li Qingyun went to find Thanos, he didn't take her with him. This time, she followed him, riding her white Pegasus with a pair of huge wings, wearing her Valkyrie combat armor. Who are you? Star-Lord and others looked at the heroic Valkyrie and couldn't help asking. Valkyrie. The Valkyrie answered casually. If you want to follow, then follow. Li Qingyun said. Then we'll go too. Gamora spoke directly. I'll drive the Milan. Star-Lord turned and walked towards the apron. Not long after, Star-Lord drove the Milan over. The Guardians of the Galaxy boarded the Milan one after another, and the Valkyrie still rode her Pegasus. Li Qingyan pointed to the front, and a space wormhole that could accommodate the Milan was formed directly. Go over, and the other side of the wormhole is the anti-Earth where the Supreme Evolution is. At this moment, the Supreme Evolution was angrily insulting Aisha in the virtual projection. Who told you to talk so much to them? My order was to bring back subject number 13 as soon as possible, not to negotiate with them. Now, you didn't bring back subject number 13, and you directly led Li Qingyan here. It will be impossible to catch subject number 13 in the future. You sovereigns, are really the most failed species I have ever created. Quote. Boss. Hula came behind the Supreme Evolution and interrupted the Supreme Evolution, who was continuously outputting. The Lord of Shenhe is here, and he brought subject number 13 and all the people of the Guardians of the Galaxy together. After hearing what Hula reported, the Supreme Evolution, who originally wanted to continue to be angry, immediately calmed down. He walked to the glass at the front of the room and looked through the glass at Li Qingyan and others who were slowly walking towards them in the distance. Everyone, attack me. The Supreme Evolution had a gloomy face and gave direct orders to everyone. As a result, those strangely modified animals that had been standing still immediately rushed towards where Li Qingyan and others were. It looks like a pig's head, but its lower body is a guard made of steel. A guard with a beak but a body full of muscles. There are also various other soldiers transformed from animals. They possess great strength and powerful weapons. To be honest, they are a little more powerful than the ordinary soldiers of the Chidori Legion. But it's just a little bit more powerful. And in terms of numbers, they are obviously not as large as the Chidori Legion. You guys, I'll leave it to you. Li Qingyan walked forward minding his own business. Behind him, Valkyrie and the Guardians of the Galaxy all rushed out. They stopped all the monsters that wanted to attack Li Qingyan one by one. They asked to follow them on their own initiative, and now they naturally have to play their due role. Without the interference of the shrimp soldiers and crab generals, Li Qingyan walked directly into the spacecraft, and then started from the first floor and walked up one floor at a time. He can obviously directly locate the location of the Supreme Evolution. But he didn't do that. He just wanted to see what powerful people or weapons the Supreme Evolution had under his command. However, this result disappointed him. Although there were many people who blocked me along the way. But they are just ordinary people, and even if there are occasionally some that have been specially modified, their combat prowess is not worth mentioning. Li Qingyan just controlled a flying knife and went directly from the first floor to the 10th floor without stopping for a second. Are you getting bored of this universe? The big clock asked. It had discovered Li Qingyan's state of mind at this time. Yes, Li Qingyan sighed. Although the universe outside is extremely vast, no matter how you look at it, it is not as wonderful as the Earth. In the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, more than 80% of the events in all the movies seen before Li Qingyan traveled through time took place directly on Earth. Those super powerful villains seem to be on Earth as well. Thanos, the only known supervillain in the universe, is now cowering away and not daring to show his face. Egg didn't bother him for the time being. Nowadays, there is a Supreme Evolution that does not know whether to live or die, but judging from the situation, it seems that it is just like that. We have almost found the living planet. Then it's a long process of absorption. When the things here are dealt with, I will go back to Earth and study the super god-like universe technologies in your database with peace of mind. Li Qingyan has been wandering around for more than half a year and has done a lot of things. Now that I have begun to feel bored, I should naturally go back to cultivate my character, further study and improve my understanding of super magical technology. Although he looks very strong now, in fact his strength is not really that powerful. But so far, all he has encountered are weaklings. Although the Chidori army and Ronan's Dark Army were destroyed, the number of people was just a matter of numbers for Li Qingyan, and numbers were not worth mentioning in front of the big clock. In terms of true strength, the strongest person killed by Li Qingyan was the accuser Ronan. Therefore, it is necessary for Li Qingyan to continue to become stronger. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing if he couldn't defeat those really powerful guys in the future? Careful, the big clock reminds. At this moment, Li Qingyan, who was stepping into the command hall of this huge spaceship, immediately felt a powerful energy bombarding him. The Supreme Evolution, although it was very unsightly when it died. But the ability shown when he appeared was not weak. After all, it was a casual slap that knocked Warlock Adam to the wall. Later on, a single move of AoE damage killed all the lives in the entire command center. And now, the energy hitting Li Qingyan was produced by the Supreme Evolution. Sword of Heaven. Li Qingyan made a casual move, and the Tianxia sword appeared in his hand. On the Sword of Heaven, the Void engine continued to rotate, and the power of the Void was released, forming a Void shield around his body. Li Qingyan knew that the ability possessed by the Supreme Evolution was gravity. The Supreme Evolution can control gravity through the equipment on its body. The reason why Li Qingyan summoned the Sword of Heaven is very simple, because the Sword of Heaven is a Void weapon, and Void-level abilities have the effect of rewriting the rules of the universe. Through the Tianxia sword, Li Qingyan directly turned the gravitational force of the bombardment into nothingness. This move of Supreme Evolution immediately lost its effect on Li Qingyan. Attack, attack! The Supreme Evolution shouted anxiously. His attack failed, and it failed due to the deliberate blow he delivered. At this moment, the Supreme Evolution began to panic visibly. Since he had figured out how to control gravity, he could easily control everything with a wave of his hand. But just now, the power he was so proud of had no effect on Li Qingyan. The other soldiers in the command room were obviously shocked by the Supreme Evolution state, but they continued to execute his orders. He raised the weapon with powerful energy in his hand, and sent out energy rays, shooting at Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan pushed forward with his left hand, and the space wormhole appeared invisibly around him. After entering the space wormhole, the energy rays that shot over immediately appeared behind the soldiers who launched the attack. These energy rays were extremely powerful, and how could those ordinary soldiers resist them? So, all the soldiers were taken away by the energy rays they shot. In the entire command room, only the Supreme Evolution and his two right-hand men, Hula and Telephone, were left. This man and woman, with a special metal device on their heads, have been assisting the Supreme Evolution in conducting various cruel experiments for a long time. Go to hell! The Supreme Evolution roared, and a strong purple energy burst out of his body instantly. Under this energy burst, everything in the command room was destroyed, including the only two assistants left by his side, and the monster with octopus tentacles that was transformed to control the entire spacecraft. The Supreme Evolution looked around, observing every corner of the command room, looking for Li Qingyan's whereabouts. Ha ha ha, what Lord of the Divine River, didn't he die in my hands in the end? Not seeing where Li Qingyan was, the Supreme Evolution immediately laughed excitedly. Alas! A sigh came from the void. Then, Li Qingyan appeared in the original position. There was no change in his body at all. The wave of attacks that the Supreme Evolution had just burst out with all its strength did not even hit Li Qingyan. Being able to control gravity is indeed a very powerful ability, Li Qingyan said, while slowly walking towards the Supreme Evolution. It's a pity that your control of this ability can be described as superficial. You are not worthy of this ability at all. Li Qingyan's words were like a steel knife, stabbing directly into the heart of the Supreme Evolution. Shut up! You shut up! The Supreme Evolutionary screamed madly, just like the heart-wrenching roar after being mocked by Rocket Raccoon in the movie. I am the Supreme Evolutionary. I will guide and create the most perfect creature in the universe and create the most perfect society. I will be the greatest creator. The goal of the Supreme Evolutionary is to create a perfect race. However, his perfect race is built on the accumulation of countless lives. He has destroyed planets and species again and again but has not succeeded. The most perfect creature, you don't know what perfection is. Li Qingyan sneered. At this moment, he has walked in front of the Supreme Evolutionary. The Supreme Evolutionary wanted to take action and wanted to attack Li Qingyan with his ability. But for some reason, his body was completely immobile at this time. It seemed that the power in his body was deprived. He could only stand there, bending down and lowering his head involuntarily, as if worshipping the man in front of him. The most perfect creature is like this. Li Qingyan stretched out a hand and gently tapped the forehead of the Supreme Evolution with his index finger. A message was instantly transmitted to his brain. He saw a perfect figure. She had a peerless face, wore silver armor, and had a pair of beautiful wings behind her. She sat lazily on the lawn with her long silver hair draped over her shoulders. She raised her right hand gently, and a beautiful purple butterfly landed on her fingertips. The supreme evolution was completely stunned. The figure that appeared in his mind and the scene became eternal in his heart. He finally saw the perfect image that he had imagined countless times. He could close his eyes. The body turned into countless purple light spots, and then slowly dissipated. The supreme evolution finally saw the most perfect creature, but this was only the last scene he saw. Li Qingyan infused a huge amount of dark energy into the body of the supreme evolution, vaporizing its entire body. Hexi, the king of Tianji. Is this the most perfect creature in your eyes? The big clock naturally knew the picture that Li Qingyan transmitted to the supreme evolution's brain. And the picture of that scene happened to be the picture of Hexi, the king of Tianji, sitting on the lawn and teasing butterflies when testing Angel Yan's ability. Isn't she perfect? Li Qingyan did not answer, but asked directly. The angels are indeed the most perfect in appearance, but they are arrogant in their personalities and too conservative in their thoughts. In the subsequent development, they have gradually been surpassed by the god of death Karl. The big clock said, "What's wrong with arrogant personalities? What's wrong with conservative thoughts?" Li Qingyan said with some indignation. Does having stronger strength mean that a race is the most perfect? There is no absolutely perfect person in this world. But in this world, in the eyes of certain people, there are people who can be called perfect. Li Qingyan showed the image of Hexi, the king of Tianji, because in Li Qingyan's eyes, this is what he thinks is the most perfect person. No wonder you haven't found a girlfriend. It turns out that you like the angel he/she. The big clock knows very well that before crossing, Li Qingyan had pursued a girl. But after crossing, Li Qingyan gained stronger abilities. Logically, he could get any woman he wanted. That coquettish shield agent, Dr. Zhao Helen, who is pretty and smart, Valkyrie, and so on, Li Qingyan doesn't like any of them. Even though he was surrounded by a lot of beautiful women on that planet some time ago, he just had fun but didn't invest in real feelings. It's not that I have to have Tianji Wang he/she, but as people become stronger, their horizons also become higher. In the past, he only needed to find a pleasing one with a good outlook and a good attitude. But now, when he sees those women, he can see all their thoughts at a glance and know everything about them. It's really not easy to like someone under such circumstances. Besides, since he already has a theoretically eternal lifespan, why should he rush to find a girlfriend? Isn't Li Qingyan living well now? Build the gravity system that the supreme evolution used before in the dark matter plane for me. Li Qingyan withdrew his thoughts. Although Li Qingyan's current combat power is already very strong, he will immediately configure those useful things. Gravitational control. Although Li Qingyan has not learned about the relevant content before, he can be sure that there must be relevant technology in the huge database of the big clock. Anti-gravity technology. The Teoti core can already use it skillfully. How could the big clock, as the greatest celestial computer known to the super god universe, not have it? Manufacturing has begun, the big clock replied. At the same time, the corresponding equipment for controlling gravity has begun to be manufactured in the underground factory. The dark matter plane architecture, through the dark matter plane space, places equipment with various capabilities in it, and then provides Li Qingyan with capability support in battle. A super soldier has all the capabilities of a huge spaceship, which is only possible because of the existence of the dark matter plane architecture. And the most powerful gods, their dark matter plane architecture is often the most complex engineering. Holy Kesha, her dark matter plane is bound to the sacred knowledge treasure house and the entire king's arsenal. Li Qingyan now, there is already a big clock in his dark matter plane space. But he will not stop there. Li Qingyan is always making himself stronger by constantly expanding and building more abilities. Li Qingyan now has a simultaneous upgrade of super genes and dark matter planes. Super genes integrate more supernatural factors to obtain more powerful powers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The dark matter plane space is constantly expanding with Holy Kesha as the reference target. Diego. Not long after, everyone from Valkyrie and the Guardians of the Galaxy arrived at the command hall. Looking at the empty command hall in front of them, they already understood what happened. The founder of Og Company, the one who was called the Supreme Evolutionary, was so easily wiped out by Li Qingyan. Not even any bones were left. Go and convey a message to all the civilizations under Ultron Company. From today on, they are all under my control. Li Qingyan is no longer too lazy to look for the life planet in person. Now under the rule of the Supreme Evolution, there are several other life planets that can be directly brought under his command. Let them cooperate with the people I sent to build the altar. If there is anyone who doesn't cooperate, let's wait until the entire planet is destroyed together. Li Qingyan's words made no one in the Guardians of the Galaxy present dare to question them. Although they have not seen Li Qingyan destroy the planet, they have seen Li Qingyan destroy the entire Dark Army. They are also convinced that Li Qingyan has the ability to destroy planets. Because the power gem, which is said to be able to destroy a living planet in an instant, is in Li Qingyan's hands. So far, Li Qingyan has never used the power of the Infinity Stones, and he is already invincible in the entire universe. At least that's how it seems to the Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyone who doesn't cooperate will be destroyed. You are really arrogant. A loud voice came from the distant sky. Li Qingyan turned around and looked outside the command room. What's coming is not a real entity. The sound of the big clock rang, and Li Qingyan had already seen who was coming. Celestial Clan, Yi Zhe. This is a character that only exists in the movie universe. He is Star-Lord's father, and his identity is also full of doubts. He calls himself a Celestial Clan, but there is no such thing as a Celestial Clan in the universe. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are only gods, the Celestials, and the 5 gods. Perhaps, the people of the Celestial Group are the Celestial Clan, but almost every Celestial God is a member of the Celestial Group, and these gods will also call themselves the Celestial Group. Yi Zhe is not a member of the Celestial Group, but calls himself a Celestial Clan, so Li Qingyan's judgment is that he may have been one of the seeds sown into the universe by the Celestial Group. However, there was a problem in the growth process of Egg, which resulted in the original body of the Celestial God Group not appearing, but instead formed the appearance of the current planet. Therefore, his energy, life form and self-awareness are obviously different from those of the gods. You're already here, why are you still parked outside? Li Qingyan said, and at the same time, from above the clouds, a golden spaceship slowly flew towards this side. This ship is not the same as a regular spaceship. It does not have so many accessories used to maintain the various functions of the spacecraft, it simply has only one shell. The energy driving the spacecraft comes from Egg's own power, so it doesn't need anything else to assist it. Lord of Kamigawa, you should be the same as me, right? Egg appears above the spaceship. It looked like an old man, and he was pretending to be Star-Lord's father. Although he was originally Star-Lord's father. But in fact, as a planet, the appearance he transforms into can be in any state. Why do you say that? Li Qingyan tried to see through Yi Zhe's thoughts, but the result was that he couldn't see through it at all. Perhaps Yi Zhe himself is just a clone transformed from energy, or perhaps his energy level has reached a certain level, so that Li Qingyan's current eye of insight is no longer able to see through it. I feel similar genes to those of the Celestials in your body, but you are obviously not a member of the Celestials. Egg said, yes, I have the energy factor of the Celestial team, and I am indeed not a Celestial team, but it is even more impossible for me to be a ball like you. Li Qingyan took the initiative to collect the energy factors of the God group and integrated them into his genes after analysis. Li Qingyan's main body is composed of super genes. The Celestial Group Factor, Thor Factor, and Superstar Factor are just part of the energy integrated into his super genes. Even if you and I are not exactly the same, we are still somewhat related. How about we join forces? Egg has always wanted to rule the universe on his own. But today, he invited him to cooperate with Li Qingyan. That's because he also felt the power of Li Qingyan, and he also knew that with his own clone, he might not be able to take Star-Lord away from Li Qingyan. Join forces. Join forces to use your own son as a battery. Use the energy in his body to activate the seeds you have buried throughout the universe, and then control the entire universe. Li Qingyan's words caused Star-Lord, who was struggling at the side, to immediately change his expression. What the hell is this battery? You are sowing seeds all over the universe just to find an heir who can be used as a substitute for yourself. For this reason, you are even willing to kill the mothers who gave birth to your children. A ball like you is worse than a beast. If I join forces with you, wouldn't I be worse than a ball like you? Li Qingyan continued to speak, and the truth revealed in his words made Star-Lord instantly change from stunned to angry. All the thoughts were clear. Ego's goal was to rule the universe, and the way to rule the universe was to create a descendant with the same blood as him, and use the power of this descendant to activate the seeds he buried on other planets in the universe. And in the process of creating humans, after the other party gave birth to offspring, he would kill those mothers directly. So, Star-Lord's mother did not die of illness, but was killed by Ego. Asshole, I'm going to kill you. Star-Lord roared angrily, pulling out the weapon at his waist and attacking Ego continuously. Rocket Raccoon and Tree Man Groot also responded immediately. One took out an energy gun, and the other threw out a long vine directly, both of which attacked one at the first time. Ego's face was gloomy, but he didn't say anything. He just raised one hand casually, and a white energy formed a shield and appeared in front of him. Whether it was the laser shot or Groot's long vine, they were easily blocked. Seeing that his attack had no effect, Star-Lord threw away his weapon and spread his hands in front of him, and two white balls of light quickly formed. When he saw the light balls appear, Ego's face changed immediately. His eyes revealed unconcealed greed. He finally found the offspring who inherited his celestial genes, a perfect battery, right in front of him. He had to take this battery back no matter what. A pair of Egg's eyes began to glow green at this time. For millions of years, seeds have been sown among countless races in the universe. Egg worked so hard just to find a perfect heir, the best battery that could implement his plan. And today, he found it. Come here. Throwing his right hand forward, a long whip formed of white energy rolled towards Star-Lord. Egg is going to grab Star-Lord by force and then leave quickly. He probably can't beat Li Qingyan now, but if he returns to his original body, Li Qingyan should not be his opponent yet. If he waits to absorb Star-Lord's power and activate all the seeds scattered in the universe, his power will become stronger. By that time, let alone Li Qingyan, even if the real God group comes, they will not be his opponent. Want to steal people directly from me? Did you think I didn't arrive? As Li Qingyan spoke, he stepped hard on his feet, and an invisible energy wave immediately spread out from his body. This invisible energy wave directly covered dozens of meters around Li Qingyan. Naturally, Star-Lord and the others were also protected. The energy whip thrown by Egg was blocked by the energy wave and could no longer get any closer to Star-Lord. Li Qingyan, do you really want to fight me to the end? Yi Zhe was very angry. Originally, he didn't have much hostility towards Li Qingyan. He hoped that they could have nothing to do with each other and live in peace with each other. But now, Li Qingyan is blocking his actions. So what if I go against you? Li Qingyan asked back. Ego wants to take away Star-Lord and realize the plan he has prepared for thousands of years. Over the years, he has planted seeds on every planet in the universe, and now these seeds have already taken root in every planet. If Egg is really allowed to inspire these seeds, they will directly occupy the entire planet and become part of Egg's energy source. At that time, Ego will directly be the strongest existence in the entire universe. When that time comes, will Ego allow other people to exist and pose a threat to him? Since you insist on going against me, let's see who is stronger. Egg spread his hands, and two white energy gathered in his hands to look like two spears. After the spear was formed, he threw it out and stabbed straight towards Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan took another step forward, moving his body from inside the original spaceship to midair. A burst of golden light was inspired from his body. This light is the power of the God of Thunder and the power of the gods in Li Qingyan's body. Li Qingyan is not using dark energy now, and he is not using his attack methods from the dark matter plane. He wanted to use his pure divine power to compete with the ego in front of him. Grabbing both hands forward, the two spears thrown out by Yi Zhe were directly caught in Li Qingyan's hands. Golden energy emitted from the palm, and the spear formed by the white energy was completely dissipated in an instant. The power of the gods. Yi Zhe saw the golden light emanating from Li Qingyan and already knew what the nature of this light was. Although your power of the gods is very pure, it is obvious that your background is not very deep. You must have just obtained the genes of the gods not long ago, right? Yi Zhe saw the weakness in Li Qingyan. Although Li Qingyan's celestial god group genes are very strong, it is obvious that Li Qingyan has not experienced the long-term primitive accumulation of the celestial god group. Under normal conditions, the celestial group needs to undergo billions of long years of gestation and absorb millions of years of human life energy before it can finally take shape. But Li Qingyan, the energy in him has obviously not gone through this long process. The reason why Li Qingyan can now exert such power is simply because he has accelerated his absorption and transformation of life energy through other means. And this method should have something to do with Li Qingyan's conquest of different life planets in the recent period. You and I are basically the same. In order to become stronger, you have been constantly expanding your territory. You are trying to gain more energy by ruling more planets. It's just that my method is more direct than yours. After seeing Li Qingyan's true situation clearly, Yi Zhe became more confident when facing Li Qingyan. He originally thought that Li Qingyan would be such a special existence, but now in Yi Zhe's eyes, there is no difference between Li Qingyan and him. Moreover, Li Qingyan's approach was even more stupid in Yi Zhe's opinion. Because the efficiency that Li Qingyan's method can produce is too low. Frog at the bottom of the well, do you really think that the sky you see is the whole sky? Li Qingyan looked at Yi Zhe with disdain. For him, the power of the celestials is only part of his total power. But for ego, the power of the celestials in his bloodline is all his strength. If I don't have the power of the god team, I will only lose part of the help at most. If you don't have the power of the gods, you will become a piece of garbage. My increase may be slow, but I am increasing on a strong basis, and I am always increasing. Your method may allow you to go directly from a poor household to a nouveau riche in one fell swoop. But before you became a nouveau riche, you were always standing still. Just like that, how smart do you think you are? Li Qingyan laughed, and was irritated by ego's ignorance. A person who is getting stronger every day, every hour, and even every second. A person who has remained unchanged for tens of millions of years, who has greater potential, anyone can see. What's more, Li Qingyan himself is now on par with ego. Ego suddenly understood the truth. He also saw how powerful the person standing in front of him might be in the future. Today, no matter what, you must hand over Star Lord to me. Ego roared angrily. Li Qingyan will become stronger and stronger, there is no doubt about that. So, if ego wants to surpass Li Qingyan, the only way is to take Star Lord away and complete his plan directly. Otherwise, even if Li Qingyan today is not his original opponent, he will no longer be able to fight against Li Qingyan in the future. Hey, Li Qingyan shook his head helplessly. Until this moment, you still can't recognize the reality. Li Qingyan really looked down on ego. What kind of gods, what kind of strong men who have lived for tens of millions of years, he can't tell the difference between the big and small kings at all. He has already started to fight desperately. All the energy contained in his clone completely exploded at this moment. Countless energy spears gathered and shot out towards the position where Li Qingyan was. The power of thunder and lightning was constantly released from Li Qingyan's body. The divine power absorbed by the God group factor during this period of time was also fully stimulated at this moment. Li Qingyan did not intend to use the power of the big clock and the dark matter plane space this time. He wanted to defeat this God ego simply by relying on the power of the super gene in his body. Countless energy spears were constantly flying towards Li Qingyan at this moment. This attack was like a flower scattered by a fairy, and ego's main attack was a firepower coverage. He wanted to gamble that Li Qingyan had just obtained the God group factor, so the energy was not sufficient and was just in a floating state. Although ego was only a clone here now, his clone was formed by the large amount of energy gathered by the original body, so the energy he possessed was also very powerful. In this state, even if he consumes energy, he should be able to consume Li Qingyan to death. You do have plenty of energy, but are you sure you can consume me if you use it this way? As Li Qingyan said this, he grabbed the air with his right hand, and a long sword made of pure energy appeared in his hand. Although he has always used the sword of heavenly destruction, today he agreed to use only the power in his super gene, so he will only use this power. Using the sword of heavenly destruction and the void engine is considered bullying ego. Why doesn't the Lord of Shenhe use his sword? Rocket Raccoon looked at Li Qingyan in surprise. They all saw with their own eyes what it was like when Li Qingyan used the sword of heavenly destruction, and the power of that sword was obviously very strong. But now when Li Qingyan fought ego, he didn't use the sword of heavenly destruction. Not only did he not use the sword, but his fighting style was also different from before. The Lord of Shenhe, he is teasing ego. The Valkyrie knows more about Li Qingyan. After all, she has been with Li Qingyan for more than half a year. Although Li Qingyan didn't really take action during this period. But she can also roughly understand what Li Qingyan's real strength is like. Just when he was on Sokka, he suppressed the entire planet in an instant. That power is much stronger than what he is showing now. The long sword condensed by energy drew a circle in the air. A mirror formed in this circle, a mirror composed of pure energy. The mirror was pushed straight forward, just blocking Li Qingyan's body completely. With the least energy consumption, it blocked ego's powerful attack. Super God technology is very strong, but Super God technology's efficiency in utilizing energy seems a bit poor. So while Li Qingyan was learning Super God technology, he was also studying how to increase the utilization rate of energy. Therefore, how to use the least power to achieve the greatest effect, Li Qingyan is becoming more and more proficient. The power of thunder constantly lingers around his body, and the long sword condensed by energy is now flashing a stronger light. The body rushed forward quickly, and when the mirror was about to reach ego's position, Li Qingyan suddenly stabbed the long sword towards the center of the mirror. Bang! The mirror shattered, and the long sword stabbed out from behind the mirror. Ego quickly retracted his hands and crossed them in front of him to form a protective shield. The long sword successfully stabbed Ego's arm, and Ego's hands. At this moment, the energy bursting out of Ego's body firmly bound the long sword. Without a weapon, I wonder how you can continue to fight. Ego deliberately used his arms to resist the attack of the long sword, with the purpose of controlling Li Qingyan's long sword. Don't you even look at what is flashing on my body. Li Qingyan laughed, he was amused by Ego's stupidity. What? Ego raised his head blankly. The next moment, a strong electric current, along the energy long sword that Li Qingyan stabbed on Ego's arm, rushed directly to Ego's body. Unlike the power of the God Group factor, the Thunder God energy factor that Li Qingyan obtained was possessed from the very beginning. Moreover, from the second generation to the third generation, Li Qingyan's lightning energy is much stronger than the God Group energy. This strong current is now covering Ego, completely enveloping him, and the intensity of the current is still increasing. Ego's body, at this moment, seems to be dissolved, and begins to dissipate continuously, and his energy is disappearing rapidly. No, this is impossible. Ego panicked. My body is condensed from pure energy, how can it be destroyed by electric shock so easily? Ego didn't want to believe it. With his strength, how could he be defeated like this? General electric shock may not work for you, but when the energy increases to a certain extent, even if there is a difference in the nature of the two energies, it is enough to make up for it. Li Qingyan said, what's more, my lightning power is almost the same as your God clan's divine power. As the voice fell, Li Qingyan began to stimulate more powerful energy. With the influx of this energy, Ego could no longer bear it. His body began to collapse at an extremely fast speed and eventually dissipated completely. However, before disappearing, he still left one last harsh word. You can kill one of my clones, but you will never be able to kill countless of my clones. From today on, I will send more clones continuously. I don't believe you can defeat me. When the last word fell, it was also the time when Ego's last trace of energy dissipated. Ego's last words became a source of worry for the Guardians of the Galaxy and others. But at this time, Li Qingyan sneered disdainfully. Endless clones. When I destroy your body, where will your clone come from? Now that we have already fought, how can we not eliminate the root cause? Li Qingyan was unable to catch up with Thanos and allowed Thanos to escape. That was because Thanos relied on the spaceship to quickly shuttle, dodge and hide in the universe. But Ego, his body is a planet. Even if he can change the trajectory of his flight according to his own wishes, it is difficult for such a large individual to quickly change his position. It is completely impossible to transfer directly through the wormhole. Heimdall, help me search for the specific location of Egg. Li Qingyan said, and Heimdall, who was on Asgard, naturally received Li Qingyan's message immediately. He began to adjust his direction and quickly searched for Egg's whereabouts in the universe. At the same time, Li Qingyan set out to find the predator Yondu. In case Heimdall can't find Egg, go find Yondu. Yondu had brought many of Egg's descendants to Egg, so he naturally knew where Egg was. Ego's whereabouts were soon found. Heimdall found him before Li Qingyan went to find Yondu to ask. On a small planet, Ego's clones are constantly being created. They are driving golden spaceships and flying towards Li Qingyan. Just as Ego said when his last clone was destroyed. He is constantly creating clones, and he wants to use a large number of clones to drown Li Qingyan. Even if Li Qingyan is very powerful, 1 or 2 clones may not be enough for him to fill his teeth. But dozens, hundreds, thousands of clones appear together. Even if these clones are just ants, they are enough to bite an elephant to death. If Ego knew that it was his clones that were constantly created that exposed his position, he might regret it. Because, after Li Qingyan determined the location of Ego's body, he immediately used wormhole technology to come here. Instead of just using an energy sword as before, he directly took out the heavenly sword. There was no flashing thunder and golden light on his body, but there was an invisible aura that was constantly emanating from his body. This was Li Qingyan's true strength. It was his true strength as a super soldier who controlled the big clock. Ego, there is no need to send clones to other places. Li Qingyan said in space, but his words could be clearly transmitted to the planet in front and to Ego's ears. Is it you? One of Ego's clones immediately flew out of the planet. Looking at Li Qingyan standing in the air at this time, feeling the invisible energy aura released from Li Qingyan. The expression on Ego's face became very ugly. Originally, he thought that Li Qingyan, who had killed his clone before, was already a very powerful existence. Until he saw Li Qingyan, who really exerted all his strength at this moment, he knew that he was wrong. Li Qingyan's strength was much more terrifying than he expected. Your strength. Are you scared? Looking at Ego's hesitant look, Li Qingyan understood that this guy was beginning to be afraid. Li Qingyan's strength had obviously threatened him. A large number of clones that had been dispersed were now rushing back. Half of them were distributed in front of Li Qingyan. The other half all returned to the surface of the planet. They were on guard, fearing that Li Qingyan would break into the interior of his planet and destroy his planetary core. That was where Ego's real body was, and where Ego's soul was. If that place was attacked, then even if Ego had a strong power, he would not be able to exert it. Prepare to start the space replacement. Let's send this Ego to bask in the sun. Li Qingyan looked at Ego's actions, but his face was full of disdain. It was just destroying a planet, and it was not a very big planet. Although Li Qingyan does not have moves such as Sky Blade Judgment and Sky Blade Judgment that mobilize a large amount of stellar energy, it is easy to destroy. For example, take out the Infinity Stone, stimulate the energy of the Power Stone, and directly bombard the planet to blow it up. Another example is to let Asgard aim the Rainbow Bridge at the planet and directly use the energy of the Rainbow Bridge to destroy the entire planet. Another example is to directly call on the huge dark energy to transform into a super large sky sword and pierce the planet with one sword. But all of these, Li Qingyan felt that they were not good enough. He wanted to try his strongest move, the space displacement ability displayed by the big clock. In the Super God universe, the god of death Karl used this move to directly get Kesha to the Emerald Star. Now, Li Qingyan wants to try whether this move can also transfer a planet to other places. If it can, then Li Qingyan can start to consider the next project. Drive the star to bomb the black hole and obtain black hole matter. This is what Li Qingyan wants most. Creating a black hole engine, a technology that can break the balance between the gods of the Super God universe, can make Li Qingyan directly become one of the strongest gods in the Super God universe. Once Li Qingyan creates a black hole engine, he can directly replace the void engine in his body. At the same time, the divine body can also be upgraded to the 4th generation divine body. With the 4th generation divine body and black hole engine, Li Qingyan will become the strongest existence in an instant. Coupled with some powerful energy factors in this universe, Li Qingyan may be invincible. The energy consumed by the space replacement program is extremely huge, and once this move is used, it may be used on others later. The other party may be alert, making it difficult to play its effect. The general trend reminded, You already have 3 infinity stones to provide energy, and tens of thousands of stars as backup, so you don't have to worry about energy. As for the move being known to others, there is no need to worry about that. There are not many people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who can see through all this. Besides, if the space displacement move can only be used once, it is not a powerful killer. If it is useless in the future, just use it to bomb black holes. Li Qingyan thought very clearly. Space displacement is a very powerful move, but if the move can only be used as a sneak attack, then this move becomes less important. Understood. I will prepare the algorithm program for space displacement immediately. The big clock said no more and began to make arrangements according to Li Qingyan's instructions. Igo still didn't understand at this time. He was urgently arranging defenses, and he wanted to turn himself into an impregnable fortress. No matter how strong Li Qingyan is, Igo will rely on the human wave tactics to wear him to death. At least he must force Li Qingyan back. Li Qingyan, there is no deep hatred between you and me, so why not stop here, and we will have nothing to do with each other from now on. You take your Yangguan Road and I take my single plank bridge, okay. Igo has begun to give in. Although the two sides did not really fight. But Li Qingyan's arrival and the power shown by Li Qingyan have already frightened Igo. If you want to hit me, then we'll fight till death. Now I'm here to find you, but you say there's no deep hatred. You always say whatever you want with just one lip. What Li Qingyan hates most is two-faced people like Igo. You say one thing when you hit someone, and another when they want to hit you. But the question is, why should others listen to you? Now the initiative is in Li Qingyan's hands, so he can do whatever he wants, and it's not Igo's turn to say anything. The space replacement program is ready and can be started at any time. The sound of the big clock sounded in Li Qingyan's mind, and the space replacement program was ready at this time. The replacement site is a star system where 2 stars exist at the same time. The energy produced by its stars is extremely large, and the gravitational field between the 2 stars is extremely complex. Even a small spacecraft passing through that gravitational field would most likely be destroyed. If a planet-level celestial body appears in that place, it will definitely be torn apart. The big clock calculates the entire space replacement process. At the same time, the most suitable one was selected to destroy Igo's interstellar environment. It's time to send this celestial clan away. Li Qingyan raised his head and looked at the small planet in front of him. What do you mean? Yi Zhe looked at Li Qingyan with a confused look on his face. It was clear that the two sides were still confronting each other, and it was clear that Li Qingyan had done nothing. Why did he suddenly say that he was going to be sent away? What kind of send-off method is this? Want to push yourself somewhere else? It means you can go on the road and die. The moment Li Qingyan's words fell, the entire universe completely changed at this moment. Li Qingyan, all the clones of Yi Zhe, and the planet where Yi Zhe's body is located behind these clones. Take a closer look at the surrounding environment. This is actually a completely unfamiliar star field. To the left and right, 2 huge star systems are constantly emitting hot energy. And Yi Zhe's main planet is currently between 2 stars. How can this be? Egg yelled in panic. Yes, he was scared. As a member of the Celestial Clan, he has been wandering in the universe for millions of years, growing from a small individual to the size of the current planet. He can be said to be an extremely powerful existence in this universe. Not even the group of gods who manage the entire universe, not even the infinite stones, are enough to scare him. But at this moment, he was afraid. It wasn't because of the environment he was in, but why he suddenly appeared here. It is a planet. Who can directly transfer a planet from the other end of the universe to this place without anyone noticing? Even if you have the ability to teleport through space, even if you have the space gem, it's still impossible to do this. Who are you? How on earth did you do all this? You talk a lot. Li Qingyan was already a little impatient. What you in the end? This is the cemetery I chose for you. Whether you want to go to the star on the left or the star on the right, you choose. Li Qingyan still stood in place, and an invisible gravitational force was released on his body, allowing him to remain between the 2 stars without any influence. However, Egg was not so lucky. Although his strength is not weak, his body is too large and the gravitational influence is even greater. At this moment, He was in the gravitational pull of 2 stars, and there were only 3 consequences facing him. Either it was pulled away by the star on the left or the star on the right, or it was directly dismembered by the 2 stars and turned into 2 parts that fell into the 2 stars respectively. No, no, Egg shouted frantically. All the clones flew out of the planet at this time and flew to both sides of the planet to use their own power to maintain the balance of the planet. Li Qingyan, Lord of the Divine River. Please, let me go and take me back to my original dimension. I will never go against you again. Let me be your subordinate, even if it's just your dog. Don't let me die here, I don't want to die. Egg kept begging for mercy. At this moment, he is not a noble god, he is just a person who is afraid of death, a person who is willing to risk everything and beg for mercy in order to live. However, Li Qingyan was not moved at all. He stood there, watching Egg's clones begin to burn as they continued to withstand the high temperature of the star. Even the planet itself began to be affected by the effects of high temperature and gravity. The living things on the planet were quickly burned, and the rocks and soil on the surface were constantly torn apart under the influence of gravity. It's all because of you. In an instant, all Yi Ji's clones looked at Li Qingyan. You brought me here, so if I kill you, I should be able to go back to where I came from. Even if I can't, I will drag you with me and let you be buried with me. If begging for mercy doesn't work, then it's completely crazy. Egg will try his best to fight for the little chance of survival, or drag the person who wants to kill him into the abyss of hell. All these clones gave up on maintaining the integrity of the planet and flew towards Li Qingyan desperately. You want to drag me to death together, do you have the ability? Li Qingyan looked at the clones of Egg flying towards him with disdain. On Li Qingyan's body, a layer of void energy spread out, and Li Qingyan's body became transparent. Dissolve yourself into the void. Although he still existed in Ego's eyes, in fact, Li Qingyan did not exist in the real world at this time. Those Ego's clones that flew over, their attacks fell on Li Qingyan, but did not produce the slightest effect. No matter whether they used fists or energy, hitting Li Qingyan was like hitting a shadow. Rumble. A huge roar came from Ego's original planet. The geological structure of the entire planet finally began to collapse under this powerful gravity. No, no, Ego roared in despair. Then, the attack became more crazy. Gradually, wailing appeared in the madness. Different clones showed different emotions. Either anger, or begging for mercy, or collapsed helplessly. The thoughts of a person on the verge of death are extremely complicated. Especially when Ego is a god with a lifespan of tens of millions of years and great ambitions. In his eyes, death was something that would never happen. But now, death is in front of him, and it is completely irreversible. Every minute he spent was just waiting for death. At this time, all his life memories appeared in flashes. And these flash memories, with the help of a large number of clones, were fully displayed. Among these clones, there were even some who were repenting. Looking at the way they repented, it was clear that they were repenting to the wives of various interstellar races who gave birth to his children but were later killed by him. Alas! With a long sigh, Li Qingyan turned around, walked into the space wormhole, and left here. He didn't want to look too much at the strange performance of a crazy god before his death. Shortly after Li Qingyan left, a louder explosion began to reverberate around the planet. Egg's body was finally completely divided into 2 parts under the gravitational pull of the 2 suns, and then fell towards the 2 suns. Finally, before entering the surface of the sun, it is completely melted and decomposed by the high temperature. Egg's core energy core was finally burned to ashes just as it was about to enter the surface of a sun. Yi Jie from the Celestial clan ended his long life. At this time, Li Qingyan had already left the star field. Next to him, there was a woman with 2 snail-like tentacles on her head. This is one of the only children left by Ego. She is Star-Lord's sister, Mantis. He didn't say anything more, but directly brought Mantis to Star-Lord, and also told Star-Lord her identity. Star-Lord has no feelings for Ego, and is even filled with hatred. But when such a sister really comes to him, he will naturally take care of her. After all, this is his only relative in the world, apart from his grandfather, whom he has not contacted for many years. Mantis joined the Guardians of the Galaxy, and subsequently traveled with other members of the Guardians to several other civilized planets created by the Supreme Evolution to convey Li Qingyan's will. And Li Qingyan returned to Earth with Valkyrie. He has been out for a long time, and now he is a little bored in this universe. When you return to Earth, you can either concentrate on studying deeper super god technology, or you can further analyze the chaos magic in Scarlet Witch's body, and strive to analyze its supernatural factors as soon as possible. One of the three major Yuan powers in the Marvel Universe, for Li Qingyan, this is the power he wants most. Mr. Li. Seeing Li Qingyan return, Wang Hyaming and Chen Li immediately came out to welcome him. For more than half a year, they have stayed in the manor. As for everyone else, Hulk is having a great time on Sakaar now, although Banner will still appear at a certain time. But after all, we are on another planet, and it is not easy to come back. Therefore, Banner basically never came back during the past 6 months. Helen Zhao has returned to China to visit relatives in the past 2 months. Selvig also went to some universities to give lectures at the invitation of several old friends from the past. In the past 6 months, you have made great progress. Li Qingyan just glanced at them, and he was fully aware of their research progress in the past 6 months. It's all because of the good environment here, and the guidance you gave us is of great significance to us. It allowed us to pass all the tests as if we had divine help during the research process. Chen Li answered. She now admires Li Qingyan more and more. Although there is not much age difference between the two, Li Qingyan's achievements in the scientific field are beyond Chen Li's reach. It would be nice if it helped. Li Qingyan is not humble either. In fact, this is also true. Without some of his guidance, the research speed of these scientists in the manor would not have been so fast. Please help me find Wang Yan and ask him to find these people on the list for me. Li Qingyan casually took out a list from midair and sent it to Chen Li's hands. This is. Chen Li was a little surprised. Except for a few well-known scientists on the list, all the others were unknown. Isn't this the math genius girl who is very famous recently? And these two, they seem to be the top scorers in science in the province. Wang Hyaming came forward. He just glanced at it and quickly found a few special names in the list. Mr. Li, if you want to recruit them, do you want to accept them as your disciples? Wang Hyaming raised his head and looked at Li Qingyan curiously. Roughly the same. Li Qingyan smiled. He has now taken another step forward, from fighting alone to becoming the lord who controls many life civilizations in the universe. Li Qingyan also began to discover that although the technologies recorded in the big clock were very advanced, there were still many that Li Qingyan had not had time to learn and could not digest in a short period of time. But similarly, Li Qingyan has also discovered that he should not just stick to the knowledge in the big clock without making any progress. Science needs continuous development. Even if it has reached such a height as the Great Clock, it is not the end of science. In real-world science fiction, there are more forward-looking technological fantasies. 7-level civilization, 3-body concept, dimensional universe, etc. Although for now, those are just fiction. But the world Li Qingyan lives in now was originally fictional. What Li Qingyan has come into contact with, learned about, and recognized has completely surpassed the real world. Therefore, fantasy technology may not necessarily be real technology. Big Clock said a long time ago that the uniqueness of human thought cannot be simulated by any artificial intelligence. Therefore, if we want to make continuous progress in science, we must rely on humans themselves, not just on the Big Clock. As for science, the divergent thinking of a group of people is definitely easier to give birth to new and feasible development directions than the ideas of one person. When Li Qingyan came back this time, he wanted to do research on his own, and of course he needed more people to do research for him. When looking for these research and development talents, potential is often more important than qualifications. Those with seniority and experience can indeed do well in their respective fields. But when the brain is immersed in a fixed thinking mode for a long time, it will become extremely difficult to innovate or to make leapfrog innovations. Because every time you fantasize, you will naturally stay in the inherent knowledge and experience. Therefore, more than 90% of Li Qingyan's list are young people, the new generation. They may lack experience and may make various mistakes. But their wonderful ideas are definitely difficult to appear in the older generation, and once these wonderful ideas are realized, it will be a scientific leap. There are not only domestic people here, but also many foreign people. Even if Minister Wang is capable, He can recruit domestic people, how can he recruit those foreign people? Chen Li raised her question. Li Qingyan is willing to recruit more talents to train them, which is a great thing for them. But the problem now is that this matter involves the whole world and it is not easy to handle. Just go to the people on the list directly, as for the countries and forces behind them. If there is any obstruction, I will let Shinhe Mecha deal with it. Li Qingyan said, and then he turned around and walked back to the manor. Chen Li and Wang Hyaming looked at Li Qingyan at this moment, and they were a little dazed for a while. Although his back is still the same as before, they don't know why, they always feel that Li Qingyan now has more domineering. It belongs to the kind of very strong domineering. Is it because of the change that has occurred during the half year of being out in the universe? He is the Lord of Shinhe who rules more than a dozen life planets. If you don't want to experience things like other planets on Earth, you'd better do what he says. The Valkyrie reminded, and her words made Chen Li and Wang Hyaming dumbfounded. The Lord of Kamigawa who rules more than 10 living planets. Is this what Li Qingyan has been doing for more than half a year after going out to the universe? Isn't this too awesome? Is this still the young man who seemed so peaceful when he was with them before? With these doubts in their hearts, Chen Li and Wang Hyaming went to carry out the tasks assigned to them by Li Qingyan. Give that list to Wang Yan. Wang Yan has resigned as a council member after S.H.I.E.L.D. was disbanded. He is now a director of the Special Incident Division. Speaking of which, he is more like the person in charge of Li Qingyan and the foreign superheroes who have withdrawn from S.H.I.E.L.D. Need to recruit so many young students at once. Wang Yan was also surprised when he looked at the list. This is a gathering of all geniuses from all over the world, from mathematics to physics, chemistry, biology and other fields. Mr. Li gave this to me personally, and he said that if anyone is willing to come, but the forces behind them interfere, he will directly ask the Kamigawa Mecha to come forward. Chen Li said, and her words made Wang Yan's face become serious. If someone interferes, let the Kamigawa Mecha come forward. Kamigawa Mechas. These Kamigawa Mechas Wang Yan knew. They were created by Li Qingyan, special robot-like mechas, but it is said that they possess real intelligence, not so-called artificial intelligence. Although these Kamigawa mechas have never participated in battles on Earth, Li Qingyan was able to have these Kamigawa mechas stationed at home when he left the Earth. Naturally, the combat effectiveness of these Kamigawa mechas was enough to reassure him. Li Qingyan said this to tell Wang Yan and other countries and forces in the world not to take the initiative to provoke him. It's a show of strength. At the same time, it also showed that Li Qingyan's attitude became stronger. If these people are unwilling to join, Li Qingyan shouldn't take action, right? Wang Yan asked. He only said that if there is interference from others, he will let the Kamigawa Mecha take action. If it is just that he is unwilling to agree, I guess he will not have any objection. Chen Li answered. Understood. Wang Yan asked no more questions. Go back, I will find all the relevant people and tell them the specific situation. Wang Yan said this. Chen Li said nothing more, turned around and left. Afterwards, under Wang Yan's arrangement, notices about Li Qingyan's recruitment of them as students began to be delivered to those on the list. In addition, they also received a detailed introduction about Li Qingyan on the internet. Countries around the world have 3 different attitudes towards this matter. Some are strongly supportive, others are firmly against it, and the rest are hands off. If there is strong support and no interference, it will naturally be fine. But those who firmly opposed it, and even directly stopped the official government, soon came out with new news. Their leader, on the day he started to stop them, was approached by several Kamigawa mechas. Some tough ones were directly hacked to death by Kamigawa mechas. Kamigawa mecha, although they were renamed by Li Qingyan, they were also given a lot of restrictions. But they are all from the Teodi Legion. That was a civilization whose interest and belief was killing. Li Qingyan asked them to deal with those guys who interfered. They all wished that those people's attitudes were tougher, so that they could go on a killing spree and enjoy themselves. What Li Qingyan is doing is too overbearing. Captain America, Steve Rogers said angrily. They are superheroes and they form a team called the Avengers. Although there is no New York battle, there is no Hulk and Thor joining. But Nick Fury still got him out. And now the core members of the Avengers are Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Falcon, Ant-Man, and Spider-Man. The first 4 are veterans, Falcon is a die-hard fan of Captain America, and Ant-Man and Spider-Man were recently brought in. Spider-Man was even a teenager. He is basically a nominal member of the Avengers. He has to go to high school on weekdays. Iron Man will only call him when there is a mission. He just wanted to recruit those students, but he actually killed so many people directly. Falcon said, based on what I know about Lee Ching-yun, he is not the kind of person who likes killing. Hawkeye is actually a friendly type towards Lee Ching-yun. He and Lee Ching-yun were considered friends in private, and his life was once saved by Lee Ching-yun. But now, he is killing people, and he killed dozens of them at once. Agent Hill said, don't you all care about why he recruits those scientists and students? Iron Man asked. What he cared about from beginning to end was not how many people died. In his opinion, although the deaths of those people could not be said to be unjust, there was nothing worthy of sympathy. What he really cares about is what Lee Ching-yun wants to do by recruiting these people. At this moment, Iron Man raised this question, and everyone present immediately began to pay attention. However, among these people, Spider-Man suddenly spoke up. He just wants to study some new things, and then find some young, active-minded and potential people to study together. At this moment, everyone immediately stared at Spider-Man. This young teenage superhero. Why did he say it so naturally? You also received an invitation. Nick Fury was the first to react. Lee Ching-yun wanted to recruit talented teenagers, and Peter Parker was such a talented teenager. Ah, yeah. After hesitating for a while, he finally nodded honestly. He did receive an invitation letter, and it was sent by Lee Ching-yun himself. It said what he was invited to do, and also showed him some advanced technologies that were not available on Earth at this stage. Peter Parker was naturally very interested. But as Spider-Man, he was a member of the Avengers, so he couldn't agree to this matter immediately, so he came to attend this meeting first. So, since he has already sent you an invitation, why not send me one? Iron Man, Tony Stark is now very confused. To recruit geniuses and genius scientists, isn't he Tony Stark one of the most famous genius scientists in the world? Huh, you don't have one. Peter Parker looked at Stark with a little surprise. However, his surprised and puzzled question made Stark awkwardly stunned. Young man, how can you be so straightforward? Lee Ching-yun sent invitation letters to geniuses all over the world. Originally, Stark thought it was because of his status as an Avenger that he didn't. But at this moment, he discovered that Peter Parker, who was also a member of the Avengers, had received an invitation. Therefore, this is not a matter of not giving it to yourself due to identity. But Lee Ching-yun really invited geniuses from all over the world, but he was the only one left behind. Why is this? Stark was depressed. But he was depressed. He would not find reasons on himself, but would put all the problems on Lee Ching-yun. When does Lee Ching-yun ask you to come over? Stark asked. He had already decided that when the time came, he would go with Peter Parker and find out for himself what was going on. Any time is fine, he has no specific requirements. Peter Parker answered. Then let's do it tomorrow. Go back and talk to your Aunt May and make preparations. Stark couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to go over immediately to understand the situation. Are you planning to go with Peter? Captain America looked at Stark. He already understood Stark's intention. If you don't enter the tiger's den, you won't get the tiger's cubs. If you want to find out what the situation is, you have to plunge in personally. Stark answered. You shouldn't think that Lee Ching-yun didn't invite you, and you're unhappy and want to disrupt the situation, right? Black Widow looked at Stark with that suspicious look in her eyes. Quote. Stark was speechless. Although he was a little angry, it probably wouldn't be enough to disrupt the situation. Well, not quite yet. At this moment, on the other side of the ocean, Lee Ching-yun sat in the manor and looked at the expanding manor. In order to accommodate the arrival of these young geniuses and scientific geniuses, Lee Ching-yun needs to prepare a large enough place in advance. Therefore, Lee Ching-yun directly bought other surrounding manors. Even other places nearby within a few kilometers were acquired by him and began to be renovated. Wang Yan has strong support behind him, so he doesn't have to be too careful when doing this. Just give the instructions, and then let a few Kamigawa mechas be responsible for some core building planning, and leave the rest to the infrastructure maniac. Why didn't you send Stark an invitation? Logically speaking, he can definitely be regarded as the top genius among the scientists on Earth today. The big clock asked. Although it sent emails to all those people privately, the list was provided by Li Qingyan. And there was no Stark on the list from the beginning. With Stark's arrogance, if I send it to him directly, will he come? Even if he comes, will he be interested? Li Qingyan asked back, but the big clock chose not to answer. For such a major event, whether invited or not, Stark should take the initiative to participate. In fact, Li Qingyan did not directly invite Stark, but simply wanted to see Stark's reaction. The Earth, even if it is not the Earth in the world where he was originally born, it is still of great significance to Li Qingyan. In Li Qingyan's heart, he actually already had the idea of ruling this planet. After all, according to Li Qingyan's criteria for judging various planets, the Earth is extremely chaotic. Moreover, the population of the Earth is unique in the universe. Li Qingyan had previously searched for so many planets with life in the universe. Among them, there were only 3 or 4 with a population of more than 1 billion, and none with a population of 3.5 billion. It is simply a miracle that a single planet like the Earth can have a population of 7 billion. Although, there are relationships guarded by various superheroes such as the Eternals, Karma Taj, and Asgard. But the Earth itself must also be special. If there are no unique conditions, there will not be enough resources. Even with superheroes guarding him, it would not be possible to reach this level. Li Qingyan has the idea of unifying the Earth, but if he wants to do this, he must first get rid of the so-called superheroes and guardians. Among superheroes, the Avengers can be said to be the representatives. And Iron Man can be said to be the representative of the Avengers. Through Iron Man, let's first understand what the Avengers think about this. Then let's find out Kamal Taj's attitude towards this. Earthlings are naturally stubborn. If you don't understand it clearly and just use strong methods to control it, maybe even the people on Earth will destroy the entire Earth, and they won't be unified by Li Qingyan. Besides, what he, Li Qingyan, wants is an intact Earth, not an Earth that is riddled with holes after the war. The next afternoon, Stark came over with Peter Parker. Because Li Qingyan is recruiting geniuses and scientific talents from all over the world, he has already said hello to the entry approval process. Anyone who comes to Li Qingyan can almost come without any obstacles. Looking at the research institute that has not yet been built. Looking at the dozens of young geniuses who have gathered here. Look at the Kamigawa mechas guarding the sky and all around. Stark's face was solemn. He can be sure that Li Qingyan is doing something that can change the entire Earth structure. But now he still doesn't know what Li Qingyan is going to do, and what impact this matter will have on the Earth. I didn't expect that people from your Stark family would come too. An old voice with a hint of impatience came. Stark turned around and realized that it was an old man with gray hair, and he was also very famous in the scientific community. Hank Pym, Dr. Pym, the creator of Pym particles and the Ant-Man uniform. Li Qingyan wanted to recruit talented scientists and talented teenagers from all over the world, so naturally he invited Dr. Pym as well. You didn't say yesterday that you were coming too. Stark turned his head and looked at the second-generation Ant-Man, Scott Lang, standing aside. I don't know either. It was this morning that he suddenly told me that he had received an invitation and wanted to come and have a look. Scott was also helpless at this time. He is not a scientist, he is just a superhero who happened to be approved by Dr. Pym and inherited the Pym particles and Ant-Man suit. Drive Pym is a rare genius in the scientific community. The Pym particles he developed are of epoch-making significance, and his research in the quantum field is also outstanding. Li Qingyan came out, and he personally came out to greet Dr. Pym. Li Qingyan has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a few years. Now he has learned about many super gods through the big clock. Compared with the super god technology of the big clock and the local technology of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the only one that can be said to be advanced is Dr. Pym's Pym particles. Pym particles can expand or shrink people or objects. Expanding this is just that for the time being. But shrinking this part is extremely magical. A human body can be shrunk to a size smaller than a molecule, and can even enter the subatomic state and enter the quantum realm. Although in terms of development in the micro field, Chaoshan technology also has its own unique features. For example, a complete super genetic code is implanted in an atom, so that the divine body can quickly return to its normal state with the help of an atom, the basic application of sacred atoms and sacred bodies. But being able to maintain a person's normal state at a subatomic size is completely different. This is pure black technology. If Li Qingyan can study it, he may be able to find out the secret of the divine body through other channels. Maybe he can also combine it with the 4th generation divine body technology and phantom body technology of the big clock to create a new divine body technology. For example, after the divine body is blown to pieces, the remaining atoms cannot directly return to the original appearance of the divine body, but can directly transform into subatomic level clones based on the data possessed by the atoms. Although the avatar at this stage will enter the quantum realm, the avatar has the ability to act independently and has complete thinking and combat capabilities. Even if the energy level will be greatly reduced, it may not be able to connect to the dark matter plane space. He will still be more outstanding than the pure divine atoms of Holy Kesha. Of course, all this is just a conjecture. Whether it can be done specifically and whether it will bring any sequelae still need to be slowly explored and pondered. Thank you, thank you. Dr. Pym looked at Li Qingyan. The original disdain for Stark on his face immediately disappeared at this moment. Mr. Li, although you are still very young, your achievements in the field of science are beyond the reach of all of us. Is the quantum field conjecture mentioned in the invitation letter you gave me true? If it is true, is it possible that my wife, who has been missing for many years, can be found again? The reason why Dr. Pym came over immediately after receiving the invitation was precisely because Li Qingyan wrote something about the quantum field in the invitation given to him. There is a high probability that it really exists, but we still need to study it carefully later. Li Qingyan naturally knew that this was real. But he won't say this directly. Understand. Dr. Pym naturally understands that it takes time to verify between conjecture and actual confirmation. Now that I'm here, I won't leave anytime soon. Besides, you still lack an office space here, right? I brought it this time too. When Dr. Pym said this, Scott Lang had already turned around and took out the suitcase he was carrying. This suitcase looks exactly like a house. In fact, this is a house, an experimental building that Dr. Pym carries with him. Yeah, that's fine. Li Qingyan was not polite and took over the house directly. He threw it casually and landed in an open space not far away. Without being controlled by Dr. Pym's buttons, the miniature house model directly turned into a building the moment it landed on the ground. Until the experimental building and living area here are completely built, those who have already arrived can make do inside for the time being. Li Qingyan said lightly. However, his move had already shocked Dr. Pym. Li Qingyan directly controlled the process of the building growing and shrinking through his own abilities. Although this was originally the function of this house, it was because the Pym particle converter was on that house. But if you want to control beyond the controller in Dr. Pym's hand, you must first invade the control system set up by Dr. Pym. As for Li Qingyan, he clearly did this in an instant. Are you planning to steal their technology? Stark stepped forward with a dark face. He is Iron Man, the most famous genius scientist on Earth. Fortunately now, Li Qingyan invited so many scientists and geniuses, but he was stunned that he was not invited. Even Stark was already standing here. Li Qingyan chatted with Dr. Pym for so long without even looking at him during the whole process. To be precise, joint research. Li Qingyan answered. Study what? Stark pressed. What do you want to study by recruiting so many scientists and talented teenagers at once? Although this question was asked by Stark, it is also what almost everyone wants to know. Including Dr. Pym, Scott Lang and Peter Parker, who were standing opposite Li Qingyan at the moment, they were all the same. Research on all higher fields of technology to promote the development of global science and technology. Li Qingyan said with a smile. Although all the basics are actually for the development of new technologies. But this does not prevent the entire process from promoting the development of global science and technology. This is called public and private. Since you are promoting global technological development, why don't you invite me? This is what Stark can't understand the most. Doesn't Li Qingyan know that he is the most outstanding genius scientist on Earth? Doesn't Li Qingyan know that the artificial intelligence security system, clean energy development projects, etc. that Stark is researching are all advanced technologies that can lead the Earth's progress in the future? First of all, your artificial intelligence system is not safe. Secondly, I have already realized your clean energy development here. Haven't you noticed it? Li Qingyan saw through Stark's thoughts directly. And his words made Stark's face gloomy. The artificial intelligence system is not safe. He developed the artificial intelligence Ultron to protect the Earth. Although it has not been successful yet, how could this system be unsafe? If it was unsafe, would he still study it? As for clean energy development, Stark looked around and soon found the practical application points of the technologies that Li Qingyan mentioned. The electricity used in this entire manner, even all the surrounding construction sites and distant cities, seem to come from solar energy. In addition, this is obviously a major industrial park, but the overall view is that people and nature complement each other and look very harmonious. Li Qingyan really did it, perfectly integrating energy and life. P.S. In the movie, Stark and Banner started to study the artificial intelligence defense plan after Avengers 1, but they never broke through the technical limitations. Later, the Mind Stone was added in Avengers 2, which led to the birth of Ultron. Therefore, even if there is no Mind Stone and no Banner, with Stark's personality, he will still study artificial intelligence and create a robot army. Actually, it's not that I want to isolate you, but your personality is not suitable for collective research. Li Qingyan did not deliberately isolate Stark, but just wanted to see Stark's reaction and the attitude of the entire Avengers behind him. My personality. What's wrong with my personality? Stark was a little indignant. Arrogant, extremely self-centered, and don't care about other people's feelings at all. Quote. Listening to what Li Qingyan said, Stark didn't know how to answer for a while. Mr. Stark was like this before, but he has changed now, and it's not so serious. Peter Parker explained, but his explanation made Stark even more embarrassed. Changed, not so serious. Isn't it true that it was like this in the past? And although there are some changes now, it doesn't mean that it can't be completely changed. Although this is a fact, it will be uncomfortable to say it like this. That's right. Li Qingyan looked thoughtful. The shortcomings of Stark's personality that Li Qingyan mentioned do exist. But after he became Iron Man and experienced more things, he began to change. But he didn't change so thoroughly. After all, there was a key event that he hadn't experienced yet. That was Loki's invasion of the Earth. Originally in the movie, Stark had a huge turning point in the plot of Avengers 1. At first, he couldn't stand other superheroes and thought that he was the most capable person in the world. Then, under Loki's instigation and Hawkeye's sneak attack, Stark understood the principle of teamwork. In the subsequent New York War, he completely integrated into the Avengers. Now, although the Avengers are still established, but because he didn't experience the entire incident of Loki's invasion, the process of this mental development is actually incomplete. Li Qingyan didn't dwell on Stark's issue anymore. He didn't say that he could allow Stark to join, nor did he let Stark leave. At this time, if Li Qingyan said, "Then you can come in and try," Stark would immediately turn around and leave. With his arrogant character, can you just say you want to join and not join if you say you don't want to? If you, Li Qingyan, don't let me come, I, Stark, must come. If you ask me to join, I will not join. But Li Qingyan said nothing, and the problem returned to Stark himself. He joined voluntarily, and he didn't join voluntarily, and it had nothing to do with Li Qingyan. Stark knew that Li Qingyan did it on purpose, but he had no way to do anything. Mr. Stark, let's go in and take a look. Peter Parker came to Stark and pulled him to the direction of the crowd. Among those people, there were one or two people that Peter Parker knew. They came earlier than Peter, so they knew the situation here better, so they directly acted as guides and introducers. They were familiar with the situation in the manor, and they also knew more people. Although there were some world-famous scientists here. But after walking around, Stark found that there were more students here. The oldest of them was only in their 20s. The youngest one is only in his teens. Their knowledge reserve may not be as good as those old scientists who have been famous in the scientific community for a long time. But each of them is gifted. Or they have unique talents in a certain field, or they have many wonderful ideas, or they are very malleable. In a word, they are all geniuses. They are the kind of geniuses who are likely to become top scientists in the future after careful training. There is an old saying in this land that there are often good horses but not good horse trainers. If these geniuses here are placed in the crowd on weekdays, you will not notice them at all. Some of them even look a little silly. But at this moment, when they gathered in this place, they found people of the same kind and a perfect platform, and you will suddenly find that each of them is so excellent. How did he do it so accurately and find all these geniuses at once? Stark was shocked. He has actually been paying attention to those young geniuses. He used MIT and other methods, such as holding competitions and science exhibitions, to find young people with potential. But he could still find very few. In these years, the only one he met who satisfied him in every aspect was Peter Parker and the little boy Harley. Li Qingyan was different. He recruited a large number of people at one time, and each of them was a genius. Obviously, in Jarvis's investigation, they were just ordinary college students, high school students, even technical secondary school students, and social people. But they were not ordinary, they were geniuses in a certain aspect. Stark can't figure it out. Li Qingyan shook his head. He could see what Stark was thinking at this moment. Through the precise control of global information by the big clock, the potential of each person can be accurately judged at the first time. How can Stark's artificial intelligence Jarvis do this? Li Qingyan thought so in his heart, and then he continued to observe and wait. Observe the condition of the entire planet today. Also waiting for more talents to arrive. In addition, Li Qingyan also sent separate communications to the Guardians of the Galaxy and Banner, asking them to come to Earth. This is a scientific event. Rocket Raccoon has an extremely smart brain, and Banner is a top scientist in gamma energy. Therefore, they naturally have to come and participate. Sovereign One, are we really going to do nothing? At the Kamatage at the foot of Mount Everest, Baron Mordo was asking the Supreme Magician Ancient One a question. What are you planning to do? Ancient One turned around. She had been silently staring at the sky in front of her, looking at the current situation of the planet. Countless young geniuses are gathering together, and the future of the Earth is undergoing earth-shaking changes in this short period of time. The future that Ancient One could see in the past has already changed. The person she thought was most suitable to be her heir in the past is no longer the most suitable person. The fate of the time stones seems to have changed. Cassius has stolen the forbidden magic, and they are studying dark magic. Today's Earth is even more turbulent. Our mission at Karmatage is to protect reality. Should we just let everything go out of control? Baron Mordo stated that he is now very worried about the future of Karmatage. The stability of the real world that they have maintained for hundreds of years is facing unprecedented challenges. The Supreme Magician Ancient One, and her most proud student Baron Mordo. The two magicians were standing under the peak of Mount Everest, lost in thought. What Li Qingyan did at this moment was beyond their expectations. If they did not take action, the originally completely independent real world would have to come into contact with the multiverse. All go there. Ancient One was also helpless. They Kamartaj originally chose to stay out of other things except the magician world. But now, for the multiverse issues that may be involved in the future, she, the Supreme Magician, had to take the lead to find the other party. If it really doesn't work, let me go. Baron Mordo saw the hesitation in Ancient One's expression. No, I must go for this matter. Ancient One rejected Baron Mordo's kindness. Cassius should be preparing to attack the temple at this time, you must guard against it. The temple means a lot to us. Yes, Supreme, Baron Mordo replied. Ancient One summoned the teleportation array and left Kamartaj directly. After Baron Mordo saw Ancient One leave with his own eyes, he turned back to the house and began to head to the temple he was in charge of. At the same time, in Li Qingyan's manor, a crowd of people surged. Top scientists and young geniuses from all over the world have come one after another. At this time, Li Qingyan was in a remote corner, in his underground laboratory. The purpose of recruiting these young geniuses and scientists is to prepare talents for the future upgrade of new technology. But Li Qingyan has not yet fully learned many of the technologies he already has. The super god universe has accumulated technology for hundreds of thousands of years, from the development history of Shinhe civilization to the active innovation of the super god academy era. Finally, it is the exploration of the void by the god of death Karl. The amount of technology stored in the big clock is extremely huge. Even if Li Qingyan has been studying it carefully, he has only been studying it for a few years. How much can he master at once? The strength he showed before was because he mastered a certain aspect first, which enabled him to exert powerful power. For example, dark energy application, micro-wormhole transportation, void engine combat ideas, etc. Relying on these specialties, Li Qingyan can travel across the universe. But this does not mean that he does not need to study other things. For example, God Killer Number 1. This is the most common weapon in the Super God universe, and it is also the most effective weapon against conventional super soldiers. But Li Qingyan has not yet seriously manufactured the God Killer Number 1 bullet and the matching sniper rifle. In addition, there are other studies such as God Killer, large celestial spacecraft, void creation, and time travel, which Li Qingyan has not studied seriously. The Supreme Magician Ancient One is passing through the magic portal and appears outside the manor. The sound of the big clock came, and Li Qingyan, who was originally holding a bullet and studying it, immediately put it down. Supreme Magician, what is she doing here? Li Qingyan was a little surprised. This is the top 5 strongest person in all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. That is almost as powerful as Odin. Although Li Qingyan is no longer afraid of them, he is unwilling to conflict with them. After all, it is hard to say what the final result will be if they really fight. Even if he wins, he may be seriously injured. She is here. The big clock reported, and the Supreme Magician had already arrived at the door of the laboratory. The 2 Shinhe mechas guarding the door immediately stepped forward and stopped them directly. Ji Yuyi just casually slapped his hands forward, and the 2 Shinhe mechas were immediately unable to move. However, this situation only lasted for 2 seconds. A burst of purple light flashed from the bodies of the 2 Shinhe mechas. Are you trying to break free from my seal? Ji Yuyi's face changed slightly. She knew that Li Qingyan was not simple, but she didn't expect that just 2 guards would still have the power to resist her seal. Woman, do you think I don't exist? The Devourer appeared in midair, and 4 or 5 Shinhe mechas immediately appeared on the ground, surrounding Ancient One in the middle. The movement here soon attracted the attention of many people around. They all saw the appearance of Shinhe mechas, and also saw Ancient One surrounded by Shinhe mechas. However, they didn't know Ancient One, and didn't know what kind of existence he was. How could there be someone in this world who dared to come here alone? Will she be a scientist like us, but just took the wrong road and broke into the restricted area? I don't think so. She looks more like a wizard. The crowd of onlookers talked about it. They were all guessing about Ancient One's identity, and also guessing what happened. That woman is very strong. Peter Parker stared at Ancient One, and his spider sense sensed a dangerous breath. Stark and Scott Lang were next to Peter Parker at this time. The 2 mechas were bound by some kind of force, and it would be difficult to break free in a short time. Stark couldn't see the situation of Ji Yuyi, but he could see the situation of the 2 Shinhe mechas. Stark had previously carefully analyzed these Shinhe mechas. Although they are robots, the built-in energy of each mecha is extremely strong. Moreover, these robots have the ability to think independently and have strong combat performance. They can be said to be very powerful. Being able to seal 2 of them with one move, the strength of this bald woman can be imagined. Mr. Li, I'm here. Is this how you receive guests? Ji Yuyi ignored the Devourer in midair. She didn't like this Shinhe mecha, especially after seeing the thoughts in his mecha. Only those who are invited in are guests. You are not the one who barged in like this. As Devourer spoke, he raised his right hand and summoned a purple energy ball directly. This was formed by the gathering of void energy. Originally, Ji Yuyi didn't bother to look at Devourer, but the moment the energy ball appeared, she immediately looked over. Her brows were slightly frowned. Just a mecha, does it have such power? Ji Yuyi was surprised. She finally understood why Li Qingyan left this guy to guard the laboratory after he left. With the combat power of this mecha, it would be difficult to deal with it in a short time even if she came. Adding the other Shinhe mechas here, it would be even more difficult to complete the invasion. And the delay time is enough for Li Qingyan to rush back with his ability. Coming here uninvited is indeed a bit abrupt, Ji Yuyi said, but she still ignored the beast and looked at the door of the laboratory. The door that was originally closed was now open. Li Qingyan was slowly walking out of it. Lord of Kamigawa. The Kamigawa mechas lowered their heads one after another, and even the devouring beast fell from midair. These Kamigawa mechas were all bloodthirsty warriors of the Teoti civilization, but now Li Qingyan is their god. Absolute loyalty to God is a belief engraved in their memory and database that will never be violated. Li Qingyan just waved his hand casually, released the two sealed Kamigawa mechas, and then continued to walk towards Ji Yuyi. You walked in directly from the door, and you even planned to ring the doorbell, so you're not breaking the rules. He could clearly see what Ji Yuyi had done when he arrived. With Ji Yuyi's ability, she can directly enter the laboratory, at least directly to the inner door of the laboratory. But Ji Yuyi didn't do that. She chose to come outside the manor. She walked all the way through the door, and when she reached the door, she planned to ring the doorbell. As for why she didn't press it, and why she directly sealed the two Kamigawa mechas here, Li Qingyan didn't understand. Was he trying not to cause a stir, but he failed? Or did she simply want to see how powerful the Kamigawa mechas like Li Qingyan were? Let's go to the living room. The laboratory is indeed off limits to outsiders. Li Qingyan did not get into trouble with Ji Yuyi. Now he is a courteous corporal who recruits talents from all over the world. How can he care about trivial matters? However, the rules should still be explained clearly. The laboratory is Li Qingyan's only restricted area in this manner. It will also be the only restricted area after the entire industrial park is completed. I didn't intend to go in either. Ji Yuyi understood the meaning of Li Qingyan's words. These Kamigawa mechas of yours are quite special. They seem to have their own thoughts, but their souls are not pure. Ancient One looked at the Kamigawa mechas around him and said doubtfully. When they chose to abandon their physical bodies and completely implant their memories and thoughts into the mecha, they no longer had pure souls. Li Qingyan looked at the Kamigawa mechas around him. Li Qingyan could not accurately judge whether they, who were created by re-engraving the data through the big clock, were considered to have souls. But there is no doubt that there is something wrong with their souls. Abandoning the body and gaining stronger strength can better fulfill the mission given by God. Shishu said that when they chose to give up their bodies, it was not a moment of madness. But they have had this idea since a long time ago. The Teoti clan is willing to give up everything in pursuit of power. God. Ji Yuyi looked at Li Qingyan. The God they talk about is not me, I'm just reawakening their data later. Li Qingyan will not let those who are loyal to him become a machine. Only the God of death, Karl, who has no respect for life and wants nothing more than studying the void, would not care about these people who are loyal to him. You reshaped us and you are now our only God. Eating the beast is a sign of loyalty. Li Qingyan could only smile and nod. Li Qingyan has no doubt that Kamigawa mecha is completely loyal to him. They worship the strong in their bones. With his powerful force, Yi can make all the Teoti Legion soldiers obey his orders. Now that Li Qingyan has recreated these Kamigawa mechas, and has shown a power far beyond theirs, the Kamigawa mechas will naturally be extremely loyal to him. Let's go. Speaking again, Li Qingyan took Ji Yuyi and left the laboratory. Except for the two mechas that were originally stationed here in the laboratory, Shibi took all the other Kamigawa mechas and left directly. They are back where they belong. Nowadays, most of the Kamigawa mechas stay in their cross-flagship, the Dark Star, the Dark Elf Mothership, etc. As for the manor, apart from some necessary guards, there won't be much left. After all, the state of the Kamigawa mechas is not suitable for such trivial tasks as hosting scientists and talented teenagers. Work like this is handled by service robots in the manor. Li Qingyan brought Ji Yuyi to the lobby of the villa. The two sat down facing each other, and the service robot brought fresh tea that had just been brewed. Tell me, what do you want to do when you come to my place this time? Li Qingyan took a sip of tea and then asked. What do you plan to study by recruiting these scientists and young geniuses? Ancient One did not answer, but asked his own question first. What I want to study seems to be my own business. Do I still need to report it to you in advance? Li Qingyan said. No, you don't need to report to me. Ji Yuyi shook her head, but then she continued to add. It's just that the reason you found Dr. Pym is to study the quantum realm. Your goal should be to enter the quantum realm and find a way to the multiverse, right? So, you want me not to get involved in the multiverse? Li Qingyan understood the reason why the Ancient One came here. The multiverse is too dangerous. Once there is communication and connection between each other, there will inevitably be a lot of trouble, and even extremely serious consequences. The Ancient One protects the real world, and the multiverse is also one of the threats to the real world. Dimensional dimensions and multiverses are all things that the Supreme Magician needs to pay attention to at all times. The multiverse era will inevitably come, and you can't stop it at all. Li Qingyan will definitely go to the multiverse, and it is the kind that the Ancient One will definitely not be able to stop. Besides, even if there is no Li Qingyan, other superheroes will sooner or later open the passage to the multiverse. The American girl who travels in the multiverse will come here sooner or later. If it can be later, it's better to be later. The Ancient One feels that the current superheroes are not ready to deal with the arrival of the multiverse. Even Doctor Strange, who was once highly expected by the Ancient One, has not yet become a magician. I will not stop my steps just because of your arrival. I will definitely explore the multiverse once I have enough power and relevant technology. Li Qingyan directly expressed his attitude. Is the result still the same? Ji Yuyi shook his head helplessly. She had explored the future and actually seen such a scene. But she finally came here with the mentality of giving it a try. And now, the result has not changed at all. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.